Peace. Again, sorry, a few minutes late. We are here. Get ready to roll. All right, let's get everything situated. Spilled a little water on my damn shirt. All right. Damn. All right, apologize for being a couple minutes late. Let's just give it a minute or two. Let's get some, I see people starting to come in. We'll just wait for a quick minute or two. And then we will get going. It's going to be a good subject tonight. It's going to connect to a lot of different things personally. But we'll get into that shortly. All right. Before we begin, just a couple quick announcements. I don't know if everybody had a chance. I posted a video yesterday, kind of give the gist of what's going to be going on, but then just run through it again real quick. Well, first and foremost, hope if you do celebrate the holiday, hopefully everybody had a good Christmas. Mainly when I'm saying that, man, enjoyed your time with your family, friends, hanging out, whatever it is you do. So hopefully everybody, I know I had a good time. So we got one more, obviously holiday coming up, New Year's, a little more fun. I usually just kind of chill in the house. We get some food, watch some movies. I ain't trying to be out there with all the nutheads. We kind of bring in the new year in the house with family. Ain't trying to be out there with all that madness. If you do go out and you do hang out and you're going to be about, just be safe. Know there are knuckleheads out there. So just be careful. This time of year, a lot of crazy shit goes on. All right. So upcoming, we have set, just to give people the heads up, we'll get the flyer out soon. We have set January 25th as the next date for the group working. I like to call it a working because it's work. It's not really a ceremony or a ritual. It's like what we like to call a working. So the next group working will be on Friday, January 25th. Fumbling through a couple of ideas, trying to get feedback from some of the other family here and see. So we should have that organized in the next couple of days. All right. So again, just putting the date out there for people early as I can that do travel. We do get people that come from either out of town or out of state. So I just want to put that out there. It gives you just a little over a month today. I'm sorry, a little bit under a month today being the 26th. About a month. So that'll be Friday night, January 25th, 8 p.m. Again, we're fumbling with a few ideas. I'll have that clear by the weekend. So you should look out for that flyer. For those that are taking the online classes, we will be resuming the last two sessions we have left in this session. As a reminder, will be the first and the second Saturday of January. We'll resume. As we know, we got a little overextended. Then we had something came up, and then we had the holidays. So I figured it'd have been better. You know, some people had to travel, and I didn't want anybody to miss time, especially those that couldn't attend for those reasons. So those that are in that online session, first and second Saturday will be the last two for this session. And a reminder, I know some of you that email me about the next one. The next one will be in late March, and I know some of you are asking to sign up, and for the curriculum, I've got that halfway done. I'll be focused on that. Once this session is finished, I'm just trying to focus and concentrate and get this one done. I'll have that done by the end of January, early February, more so the end of January, and I'll send that information out. But I can tell you it'll definitely be in late March will be the next session. We'll take a break for a couple months. And again, those that are I'm looking to do it 3 times a year. I think that's feasible, where it gives me enough time to do it, doesn't overtake time. And it gives people that, I know we have some, you guys are taking all the sessions. So this way it kind of gives a break for the information to absorb. It gives you the opportunity to do some work and expound on it, come up with your own stuff, etc. So that's how that's going to flow. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And if anybody, I'm back pretty much to a regular schedule starting again tomorrow with spiritual consultations and readings. So I'm kind of going to be busy tomorrow. I'm back to being 2 days out. So if you are interested in a spiritual consultation or a reading, you could also email me at the email in the description box that you see in all my videos, which is khnum19@gmail.com. What people also like to use a reading for this time of the year is kind of for the new year, is a forecast for what they got in the very foreseeable future. You can use it for that. A lot of people like to use what they call a yearly forecast reading. If that's something you're interested in, you want to kind of see what's over the horizon. That would be a reading, not a consultation. We kind of just work with the spirits and kind of see what's in store in the immediate future. So we do get people that like to utilize that this time of the year. All right. So again, if you're interested, if you need more information about the upcoming event, January 25th, if you need information on a consultation or a reading, or if you need information on online classes, feel free to email me at khnum19@gmail.com. So I can't remember the person. They were in here. It was either the last class. I believe it was the last class. And I think it was something 33. They had suggested, could I possibly do a class on Leviathan? And if you remember in the video, I said that's a great idea. And it's funny because and again, I'm quoting exactly what I said in that video, and you can pull it up. It was interesting because when the person had mentioned that, it was on my mind to do something in relation to that topic. So I said, now that this person brought it up, I said, this is a good idea. Cool. Shortly after that, a couple of days later, I went and saw Aquaman. And as I said on the video I shot yesterday, it's funny when you're doing work, things line up. You're connected to the energy. I mentioned it in the form of communications and messages. When you're tapping into your higher self, as we call it, our personal daemon, our higher or real self, things just start to click. So it was all in sequence. That individual, and if you're in here or you show up in here tonight, please make yourself known. Coupled with that person mentioning it, seeing Aquaman, it just all tied in perfectly. So I figured, let me connect this, because they basically were showing you the power of the Leviathan energy, what it represents. I'm going to get into the movie. I'm kind of going to connect both of this, but what I want to do first, let's get into the essence and origin of what Leviathan is. Let's talk about this first, because not so much for people that might be on the occult path that are already aware of this. I want to do this more so for people that might be in the room now, or that might watch this video after it uploads, that might be newbies. Because one thing we got to start doing when we study, there's a difference between somebody that studies and somebody that reads. Somebody that reads just reads shit and regurgitates it. Somebody that studies absorbs the information, can break it down, and get into it in detail. Part of that starts with wordplay, the etymology of words. You've always heard me talk about that over the years in videos. We got to start doing that, especially when we're teaching and educating others, because when we're teaching others, we can't just flip it the way we might understand it or know it and use the same type of verbiage that we connect with. Sometimes you got to learn how you're going to communicate the information, what kind of verbiage you're going to use, and what methodology you're going to use to explain it. See, one thing we kind of sometimes fuck up on is, and remember, as I said, part of this path, being a god or a goddess, you have a responsibility. What is that responsibility? Not to convert people, as I said before, because that's not what our job is. We don't do that. We don't care to. But it is your job when the time arises. your responsibility when the situation's right to teach and pass along the information. That's all your job is. But we have to learn the right way to do that because each individual is different. Each individual is going to connect different. So you got to know how to approach that individual, how to teach and educate them. All right. So I want to start with what is Leviathan? Let's obviously start in the Bible because the average person that does not know, they hear that word, it automatically ties them into biblical or Bible concepts and religion. It also has a negative connotation because everybody affiliates Leviathan with the beast and the devil and all this negative rhetoric, which none of it is true, even when you look in their Bible. So what we're going to do real quick, we're going to go in their Bible, and I want you people at home, if you have a pen and a paper, to write some of this stuff down. I'm briefly going to go through. I'm going to make some suggestions, what areas to push in to do this research. All right. So first and foremost, and those of you who took the Quranic and the Bible class in the first session, and I don't say this out of arrogance, those that know, I know that shit from front to back. And in that class, for one entire day, we walked people from Genesis to Revelation through all 114 chapters of the Quran for a reason. We can't act like religion is still not a disease that plagues the minds of people. So we got to know how to address the cure of that disease. But we have to look at it from an occultist perspective because there's a lot of hidden occult or meanings and symbolisms, quote unquote, in this Bible. All right. So I will utilize that methodology of teaching when the situation calls for it. All right. So this situation and this topic, the very beginning of it calls for it. I would recommend for people, when you're doing your biblical research, get a good study Bible. I found this, and I've been using this for years now. I found this to be the best one. And I want to put this up here so you can see it. The New Oxford Annotated Bible. The reason why, the commentary in here and the breakdowns in here, to me, are more on point. And if you look at the back, who put this together? I like to use this because a lot of the quote unquote mainstream scholars and evangelists that society so dearly looks up to are a part of this. So I like to kind of use that as ammunition against people, in the sense not to attack them, but to say, look, you have like Reverend Billy Graham, Michael Coogan, Mark Brettler. And if you're familiar with some of these people, you will understand, and there's more, you will understand that these are quote unquote supposed to be some of the best religious scholars. So they're giving you the breakdown. Like I said, I believe I used this one time a while back when we were explaining who the story of the Exodus and who the Israelites were. Well, this Bible clearly will mention, I'm not going to get into that now, in the commentary when you get into about the Israelites, that they were actually the Hyksos. It clearly mentions in the commentary that there were never no documented, recorded people called Israelites. And this was a story grafted from other cultures, etc. I'll do something on that later down the road, but I'm just giving you an example. What I want to focus on, there's 6 places in the Bible where they mention Leviathan. And we're going to go through them real quickly. And I'm going to show you the commentary. And I want you to look the commentary up. And then I'm going to show you all the hidden shit that they had in this Aquaman movie. And there was a key scene that I'll get to it when I get to it. They flicked it across the screen real quick. All right, so what I would like people to do first, and if you have a Babel, aka a Bible, feel free. I have the notes on my phone. I'm just going to go through some of the brief parts. But so first place I would like people to go to is Job chapter 3, verse 8. Right. So what we're doing real quick, and we ain't going to spend too much time on it, we're showing you where Leviathan is mentioned in the Bible. Why is this important to know? Because when people come at you from a religious aspect, you need to kind of put them in check and explain this shit to them so they understand it. Because most people will just read a quote on the surface and whatever Reverend Pork Chop or Reverend Rib or Pastor Plate program them with, that's the breakdown they're going to give you without them ever having done any type of research on their own. All right. And again, I will be offering that class again soon. For all the Bible thumpers, and you'd like to overcome the Bible thumpers, it would be a great class for you to kind of get into. But anyway, Job chapter 3, verse 8. a second to get to this thing. All right. There's actually going to be 2 sections in here. And I'm going to read, I'm more focusing on the commentary, not so much the actual quote, but I want to show you what it's talking. All right, so 3 verse 8 says, let those curse it who curse the sea, those who are skilled to rouse up Leviathan, right? Now, when you go down into the commentary for 3 verse 8, and it says, those who are skilled to rouse up Leviathan are professional diviners, magicians, right? Experts in rendering effective curses. That's one commentary. This is going to get better. Trust me when I tell you. So remember, this is symbolic. The problem is when you talk to religious Bible thumpers, the problem is with religious people, they pick and choose the time when it's convenient, where they want to present a biblical quote as factual / literal or metaphorical. It's convenient. Here, the ones that say it's literal are completely wrong. So we're saying those who have the power to conjure are skilled diviners or skilled diviners or magicians. Divination, right? The second place you're going to find this. I'm telling you, this gets really good. So make sure you write that one down, Job verse 3:8. And you can do further research on this, after we're done with this. Now I want you to stick. This is going to be a couple verses. Job chapter 40, verse 15 to 41, verse 26. This is the meat of it. And I'm going to give you the other. There's a couple more, but I want to give you the meat. This one right here this one's going to give a lot of clarification. So let's go to Job chapter 40. Again, if you're following along. Don't front like you ain't got a Bible sitting somewhere. I know you people like front like you were never religious and shit. Let me stop. These are short verses. All right, so this is Job chapter 40, verse 15, and we're going to 41:26, right? And it starts out and says, look at the behemoth, which is the term for beast, which I made. Now, when you read the context of this, I'll explain. Let's read it. Which I made, just as I made you. It eats grass like an ox. It's comparing the beast, the behemoth, to the human, right? Its strength is in its loins, and its power is in the muscles of its belly. It makes its tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of its thighs are knit together. Its bones are tubes of bronze. These are all metaphor. I'm going to explain this. Its limbs like bars of iron. It is the first of the great acts of God. Watch what the commentary is going to say. So this is a great act of God, right? You don't see nothing about no devil. You don't see how it's portrayed in religious theology. Their interpretation of it is completely fucked up. All right. Only its maker can approach it with the sword. And I'm going to explain why. And I'm going to show you how this all ties into Aquaman. For the mountains yield food for it, where all the wild animals play. Under the lotus plant it lies. In the covert of the reeds and in the marsh, the lotus trees cover it for shade. The willows of the wadi surround it. Even if the river is turbulent, it is not frightened. It is confident through Jordan rushes against its mouth. Can one take it with hooks or pierce its nose with a snare? Can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook? All right. Or press down its tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope in its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it make many supplications to you? Will it speak soft words to you? Will it make a covenant with you to be taken as your servant forever? Will you play with it as with a bird, or will you play with it on a leash for your girls? Will traders bargain over it? Will they divide it among the merchants? Can you fill its skin with harpoons or its head with fishing spears? Lay hands on it. Think of the battle. You will not do it again. Any hope of capturing it will be disappointed. Were not even the gods. Notice it says gods plural, okay? Overwhelmed at the sight of it. No one is so fierce as to dare stir it up. Who can stand before it? Who can confront it and be safe under the whole heaven? Who? I will not keep silence concerning its limbs, or its mighty strength, or its splendid flame. Who can frame? Who can strip it of its outer garment? Who can penetrate its double coat of mail? Who can open the doors of its faith? There is terror all around in its teeth. In the last verse, its back is made of shields in rows, shut up closely with the seal. Now, having said all that metaphor, symbolicism, and imagery, that people take literal. Watch what the commentary says. When you go right on the bottom in the commentary, and this is why I suggest you get this Bible. When you go right on the, look what it says for the breakdown for that. Leviathan. Here's what these great scholars came together and said the breakdown. What you heard, I wanted to read it so you can hear it. All the symbolicism, imagery. I wanted you to hear it. So if somebody were to read that and thinks that that's actual literal and it is actually some monster, let me explain. Here's what they say. Leviathan, a sea monster symbolizing cosmic chaos. Look at these motherfuckers, man. It gets worse. They say the symbol. It's not an actual dragon or monster. It symbolizes cosmic chaos. This gets even better. I'm going to show you how all this shit ties into Aquaman. Though Leviathan reigns supreme on earth, he is but a creature of a plaything to God. Job acknowledges the power of God and accepts God's judgment, etc. You can read that stuff on your own. What I wanted to point out was, before I go to the next one, here in the commentary, they say it is a symbol. It is not an actual sea monster. It symbolizes, they use the symbol of the sea monster to symbolize cosmic chaos. We know what chaos is, what it represents to the magician. When we were in the Ascetian Bible, if you remember, when we were given one of the breakdowns of the primordial energy, right? And it referred to it as the primordial chaos, right? And we're going to tie this into the Kundalini, the serpent energy, a pep, all this stuff is connected, right? Now let's go to the next one. I'm just going to give you these first couple quick, and then we're going to leave this alone. I'm not going to stay on this too long, but I think this is important. Again, maybe not so much for people. This is very important for newer people, all right? Now I want to go into Amos chapter 9, verse 3, and I'm focusing, again, more so on the commentary. I want to just briefly read you the quote, but I want you to really pay attention to this damn commentary. This commentary is off the chain because they're basically breaking down the hidden occult aspect of how we look at it as adepts and black magicians. That's the fucking crazy shit. And that's the thing I want you to pay attention to that's more important than anything. All right, just give me a second. Big ass Bible. I don't really have anything marked in here. Just kind of my old one I do. All right, here we go. I'm gonna get chapter 9. And then again, I'm gonna focusing on this commentary off the chain. All right. All right, so 9 verse 3. Though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, from Mount Carmel. From there I will search out and take them. And though they hide from my sight at the bottom of the sea, right? And if you saw Aquaman, pay attention to this. There I will command the sea serpent, and it shall bite them, right? When you go into the commentary for that quote, 9 verse 3, Mount Carmel, which juts into the Mediterranean at the northwestern border of Israel, reaches a summit of 1,800 feet above sea level and also boasts caves and forests. For those who wish to hide, sea serpents, sea monsters, personification of chaos. This is the Bible now. Or at times cast as opponents of God. Other times are here as God's servants. All right? So they're showing you how chaos, what we talk about all the time, how chaos can be a destructive thing only if you can allow it. But you can use chaos, you can use that chaotic energy, and you can use it to serve you. You can also connect this to creating servitors, to creating spirits, to doing your bidding, right? That comes from the pure chaos. Again, if you missed it, I want to point it out. It says again, these are representative of sea serpent or sea monsters, the personification of chaos, or at times cast as opponents of God, or other time here as God's servants. You're the God. So you as a God are going to either choose to use this chaos as a positive thing that you can utilize to get results, or use it in a destructive manner. All right, so that's that one. Let me get through the last couple. And then we're going to move on. This is important. I hope people writing these down because you can utilize this down the road and share with somebody else. Psalms 104, verse 26. Watch this. Tell you people. And again, focusing more so on the commentary. All right. It's a very short verse. Psalms 104, verse 26. There go the ships. I hope you're visualizing Aquaman, what you saw in the movie. And Leviathan that you formed to sport in it. Here's the breakdown. Leviathan, the great marine chaos monster, is simply a plaything for the creator contrast. The Lord maintains his providential governance of the world by providing certain things for production, etc. But again, the main thing what I wanted to focus on here, we don't need to read all that. It refers to it in this quote as the great marine chaos monster. We know what a mariner is, right? Correct. Let's now quickly go to the last two. We got two more. Isaiah 27, verse 1. And then the one that's the most important, the last one. I say that one for last. All right, Isaiah 27, verse 1. And then, again, focusing more so on the commentary than the actual quote. And this says, on that day, the Lord with his cruel and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will kill the dragon that is in the sea. That's what it says in the literal quote, right? Here's what they get their breakdown of it as. 27:1, an apocalyptic psalm with attached commentary. The psalm in the form of a lament introduced by expressions of confidence in God, the just one, and God's approval of the righteous. The lament proper on account of foreign domination with a brief glance at the national history, etc. But when you come down to here, it is expressing an intuition of a meaningful survival of death. Meaning, when you read the entire thing, it's expressing a meaningful concept of surviving death. Going back to the core essence, either the chaos you can utilize it for your own personal power, or you can be consumed or destroyed by it. All right. The last one, and then we're gonna go further into this. The last one is back into the book of Job. And I believe it's 41. Let me make sure. Yeah, chapter 41, verse 1 to 34. I'm not going to really read this. I want to, again, focus on the commentary. I'm just going to point out some key things in this, okay? So now we're going back, and this is the meat one that you really, when you get time, read the whole thing, all right? We read up to 26, right? So we could actually just read those last couple of verses because we did do 40, 15 to 41, 26. So I'm just going to go 27 to 34 because really just a few verses. I'm going to read the rest of it. And again, I quote unquote, well, actually, we don't even need to do that. You can read it on your own. But again, this commentary, again, when you read it, it'll again refer to it as a symbol of cosmic chaos. You can read it on your own, just for the sake of time. I don't really want to stay on a lot of that stuff too long. I think you get the point. So why I wanted to briefly run through that is more so if you are a newer comer and maybe you still have a religious mindset. Those are the 6 areas in the Bible you can find Leviathan mentioned. Now, having gotten that out of the word, we see it's symbolic. It's not literal. For those individuals that pass it on as some literal thing that's tied into, the devil, doesn't even make connection with, the devil and Satan. People have done that over the years in their false interpretation of theology. That has nothing to do with it. It does, but it has nothing to do with their theology of who and what the devil is and what Leviathan is. All right. So now, how does this all connect to the movie? And how do we work with the Leviathan energy on this path? Really simple. Well, first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about Aquaman. Yeah, spoiler alert. I mean, some things will be spoiled for you if you haven't seen it. Oh well. I'd recommend you see it, even though some of the stuff we'll talk about. You still need to see the movie. The individual, anytime, if you are a person that watches Marvel movies, right? You know Marvel. If you grew up and you're familiar with Marvel, I think a lot of us are. A wide percentage of us are. If you did, you always know from the comic book story or the cartoon, over the years as they've made these, high-tech movies, they always connect the origin or the beginnings or the point of origin of these characters. They give it, some historical backdrop. What they did with this one I thought was unique because, keep in mind, Aquaman's name in the movie is Arthur. Keep this in mind. The movie takes place, he's born and raised in the New England area, Maine, New Hampshire. Pay attention to this because it's going to be important for something I'm going to say down the road. He's half human and he's half Atlantean. Now here comes the whole thing with the Atlantis concept. Now, if you understand the legend of King Arthur, right? I found it unique that they connected it to King Arthur. Go back and watch the movie King Arthur. Go back and watch the movie King Arthur that came out about a year or so ago. Remember, King Arthur had to slay this dragon-like Leviathan beast at the end of the movie if you saw it. Now, the legend has it that who we know as King Arthur in history, they say, it's a legend, it's more mythology, can't be factually proven, that King Arthur was a direct descendant of the ancient Atlanteans. There's no proof to validate that. It's mythology. It's something that they've passed down for generations. So we see, if you do your research and when we watch movies, obviously as occultists, etc., we're looking at this in a whole different way. So right off the bat, I found it interesting that Marvel decided to connect Aquaman to the legend of King Arthur and Atlantis. It's a great fucking concept. So the movie is centered around the premise that those beings who live in the deep, dark abyss, right? I mentioned Leviathan in the chaotic waters, right? Who dwell in that pure divine state of chaos, feel that the surface dwellers, the humans, are not fit to rule anymore. So the movie is about them wanting to come to the surface. I'll just give you the gist. I ain't going to take away the whole plot for you and kind of take over. Aquaman's job is to not let that happen. Then you look at the character Aquaman, aka Arthur, as it develops. It starts to show a representation of us on this path. What do I mean by that? Real simple. Aquaman doesn't really understand the power that he has. You see this theme played in a lot of these movies. It's a very similar story. He's half human, half God. He doesn't really accept the fact that he has these divine powers. So they're showing you how, like with us on this path, we let sometimes our mortality and personal weaknesses kind of hold us back from progressing and evolving on this path. So you see the classic story as the movie goes on. He's battling this, obviously, right? Then he comes into prominence. We give you the short version of it. Then he starts to, as the movie comes on, at first he's battling it. He has those that coach him along the way. He starts to understand who and what he is, and he's raised to his divinity. Now, before I get towards the end part, connected with what I'm trying to connect it to with Leviathan, there's a scene where him and his father are standing. I want to point this out before I go on and point you in this direction. There is a scene where he's standing on the pier talking to his father, and you got to watch it. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. It'll shoot right across the screen, and it'll completely disappear. All right. You see a book on the ledge. And if you saw the movie, you might have caught it. If you didn't, go back and watch it again. And you see this book on the ledge that they flashed. Why they did this, they wanted you to see it and catch it. They didn't just do it for no reason. You see this guy's name on the book, H.P. Lovecraft. Okay. You see it on the ledge like this, and it says H.P. Lovecraft on it. If some of you saw the movie, you might remember it. If some of you did see it and you don't know what I'm talking about, then You must have either been turning away at that moment or distracted and you didn't see it. You need to go back and look at that and catch it. You'll see it. It says H.P. Lovecraft. Why is that important? That's when the shit all fucking clicked. I said, look at these motherfuckers. They really going in hard. They ain't even trying to hide shit no more. Why is H.P. Lovecraft important? If you're an occultist, you should be very familiar with H.P. Lovecraft. Remember I said the movie King Arthur and the whole thing is set in the New England area. Remember I said that. I told you earlier a few minutes ago. Don't forget that. Keep that in mind. It takes place in the New Hampshire, New England area. If you don't know who H.P. Lovecraft is, some of you should. I hope you do if you're an occultist. The Necronomicon. He's a great occultist, horror, quote unquote, fiction writer. We as occultists, though, we look at him. He definitely was tapping into the power of his subjective, and he has formulated many novels and put together many different works, which is classified as fiction. A lot of occultists have used his work to create their own personal rituals, especially Necronomicon, which we know that's a cult classic that many magicians have used in some shape, form, or fashion. If they haven't used it directly, they have been influenced by it. And I know I've been influenced by it to a certain extent. I would recommend, I picked this book up about 2 years ago. Barnes & Noble sometimes puts out these special edition books. And one thing I always have said in the past and previous videos, I tell people it's good to go into that bargain section in Barnes & Noble because there's some hidden jewels in there too. I found this in the bargain section on clearance for like $8. All right. And it's the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, right? It's got all his works in here. It's a very thick book. And this will really captivate your attention. If you're into this thing, or this type of thing, I think you'll really enjoy it. There's one work I want to focus on that connects to Aquaman, Leviathan, the serpent energy, etc. The reason why they show H.P. Lovecraft's book, the reason why they centered this whole movie in the New England area, that wasn't a coincidence. Because I always pay attention to shit like that when I'm watching movies. Why did they choose locale? All this represents something because H.P. Lovecraft is from that area, from Providence. He is well known in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Providence, the whole New England area. This is where he was born and raised, grew up. He had a high influence at Brown University, the major colleges and universities there. That's his point, origin, essence, and that's where his legend started out. Okay, so I said, look at these motherfuckers, man. Why they throw the Lovecraft? And look, it's like I say, when they show it in the movie, it ain't but for maybe 2 seconds. So I'm trying to tell you, if you missed it. It's one of the scenes in the middle of the movie where he's talking to his father, and you'll see the book with the bridge of it like this, the binder of it, just sitting on the ledge of the pier. Why the fuck did they place that book there? Really, it was put there strategically because they wanted people to catch that imagery. Because there's one work by H.P. Lovecraft that talks about all this. And they got a lot of the concepts of the Aquaman movie from a work called The Call of Cthulhu, which if you're an occultist or a black magician, that's a work that has highly influenced black magicians in all different facets and walks of life. I've done personal work with this. I'll leave it there. But the Call of Cthulhu deals with the serpent energy. It deals with the dragon, the power of the dragon energy. I would recommend you get that work, study it and read it, and then see how you can apply it to stuff. It talks about the power of the dragon, the serpent, chaos. He gets into the whole thing, the deep chaos of the dark abyss of the mind, of the subconscious mind. See, H.P. Lovecraft tapped into the real, he really was an individual, and especially if you read the Necronomicon, he really was an individual that tapped into the power of activating your subjective mind and how you can manifest that as everything we talk about in black magic, how you can manifest that on your objective. Well, when you read the Call of Cthulhu, it's mastering the chaos energy. It's mastering the Leviathan and the serpent energy. It tells you that chaos energy, that Leviathan, that serpent energy that dwells deep down within us, which is the core and essence of who and what we are. You understand? It'll show you that the individual has that raw power and energy. And same way, when I went through some of those biblical quotes, how it explained it can be used either as a destructive force, self-destructive force, I want to reiterate, or it can be used as a power, a personal power. Even remember, it said in that one commentary, you can use it to do your bidding. That's what a magician does. He influences he or she influences their will for the outcome that they're trying to obtain. This is what it all represents. So now back to Aquaman. So we got H.P. Lovecraft, who's born and raised in the New England area. The movie takes place in the New England area. We see they centered it around the legend of King Arthur, because they charactered him Arthur. He's half human, half God. Sound familiar? And it's connected to the rise of Atlantis. This is all has a connection with the sea, the serpent, Leviathan energy, the Kundalini rising, right? Well, one of the last scenes at the end, this kind of puts it all together when he finally puts on his Aquaman, his official Aquaman costume, whatever you want to call it, his superhero garb. He comes, you see the water, right? They took all this imagery from the Call of Cthulhu and those quotes I showed you in the Bible. You see the water start to rumble, big tidal wave come up, and then you see this big dragon, sea dragon monster, Leviathan creature come out of the water, and Aquaman is standing on top of it with the trident, which in that itself is mad imagery and is speaking a multitude of messages to your subconscious. So prior to that, when he was in doubt to who and what he was being controlled by the chaos. He was being confused by the chaos. But now the symbol of him riding the serpent, sea dragon, Leviathan, he now was commanding the chaos, but he was commanding the chaos for his own personal power. As he was now going into war, he has now been raised up to the realization that he is a god. Now, one thing they attack in the movie is classic, that he's not a full breed. He's a half breed because he's half human, half god. We know that's not accepted. But what his teacher, William Dafoe, teaches him, if you have just any amount of that blood running through your veins, you have the ability to tap into that power. This is a reality. I keep telling people this. You are who you are by your blood. The movie focuses on that. Sometimes you can get disillusioned by physical appearances. We do that in the conscious communities and circles. We think because somebody looks cultural, somebody might be dark-skinned and look more African or more pro-Kemetic, that they must be more spiritual than the Latino or the Asian because they don't really have the look. Their complexion doesn't fit the bill. They don't have the dominant Nubian features. They might look more alkaline or European features, so they possibly can't have the power of God. Aquaman went through that struggle. You see that in the movie. But they show you that that's all bullshit. They show you by the blood that runs through your veins determines the amount of power and ability you have and that you're able to tap into. So he battles that through the whole movie, which is amazing how they did it. Once he's able to command that chaos to do his bidding, he now transforms into this god. The trident, let's go back to that. We haven't talked about that. That's important. Why is the trident important? Well, you see this trident used. You see Kali carries a trident, has the 3 prongs. There's symbolism in this. 3 realms, ruler of the 3 bodes, the spiritual, the physical, and the mental. It's used as a tool in the Aquaman movie because the only person that can take this trident that was preserved from the previous king of Atlantis has to have, one, a direct connection to it and some type of bloodline connection to it. There's always that. They always show that in the movie, in a lot of these movies. So once he accepts the realization who he is, he's able to actually possess the trident. Again, they've showed similar concepts of this in other movies. The trident represents that rulership, even though it's his main weapon, because it contains his power of ruling those 3 of both, the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. That's what all of them. When you see this trident, there's many different occult meanings to it. I'm giving you the generalization of it. If you can look at Kali, you'll see she carries a trident in some imagery that you will see. So they're connecting all of this. This is not a coincidence. The last movie that I had talked about, remember I mentioned the house with the clock in the walls and how that's connected to the holy death and the death current, and they were showing sorcery and necromancy. These motherfuckers are not even hiding it no more. Not that they really ever were, but now in the last few years, they're like just being straight out in the open with this shit. But they do it slick because they're flashing it real quick. There's so many images. And when you see how they film the movie and the scenes that are filmed underwater with Atlantis, pay attention to the imagery, the costumes, the colors. Look at the creatures that they're utilizing to navigate through the deep seas. Everything is centered around the imagery in the Call of Cthulhu. Everything is centered around in the imagery of those 6 quotes in the Bible. Somebody's connecting the occult and religion and mythology. Because remember, when you're watching this movie, you have simultaneous mythologies connected. And they all tied into the legend of King Arthur. And as I say, they say King Arthur was a direct descendant of the Atlanteans. That can't be proven. That's been this mystical, mythological thing that has been promulgated through history for years. So that's who they center Aquaman around, the legend of King Arthur and Atlantis. I thought it was fucking genius how they did it and how they connected it into H.P. Lovecraft's work and how they connected it into to the New England area. All this is done purposely, people. You got it. When you're watching this shit, and as I said before, Marvel is always dropping signs, whether it's X-Men, Wonder Woman was dropping a lot of signs. You go back and watch all these movies. I would also suggest, having said that, as I said a little earlier, you need to go back and watch the movie King Arthur, the last one that came out. It shows you the same thing, how King Arthur, and I believe I did a video on that a while back. I could be wrong. I believe I did a video on that a year or so ago. It might be in the archives. I can't remember. I think I did. If you go back and you look at it, King Arthur, same thing like Aquaman. He was struggling to accept his lineage. He was considered a half-breed because he was considered a bastard child. If you remember watching the movie King Arthur, he didn't want to accept the reality of who he was. Again, that connects to our human condition. That's us on this path. We come into the world lost and confused and indoctrinated. We struggle to find our identity. We're constantly searching for the truth. Then when we come across the truth, we want to fight it because we put doubt in ourselves. We don't believe. I'm saying on the surface. I'm not saying now. I hope we're not in that point now. I'm talking about when we come into the realization of it initially, we doubt ourselves. We doubt our ability. We doubt our power. We don't think that we have the ability to be that supreme God or goddess. You understand? This is crazy because when you look at how they wrote King Arthur, the movie, it's almost, they use the identical concept with Aquaman. So we see these stories simultaneously play side by side. The beauty, one of my favorite scenes in years in movies is that last scene of King Arthur, when he fights this monster Leviathan type of being. And remember, he has dreams about it. He feared it. Remember I said to you, the chaos comes to you in certain portions, mainly midnight to 6. Now this connects to a pep. A pep is a representation of that chaos / Leviathan energy. So if you want to know how to work with this, you can use the serpent energy. You can do ritualistic work, with a pep. You can connect all of this. King Arthur showed that, a pep, Leviathan, where again, he finally comes into who he is after he slays this Leviathan monster at the end. And he says to him, the best part of that movie at the end is he says, I want to thank you for being this terror to me all my life because it bring out who and what I really am. I'm paraphrasing, but if you go back and watch the movie, he says something along that lines at the end. He wasn't mad. He finally realized that which he feared had the ability to make him powerful, to make him the God he was. What he was running from and fearing, within that lied the hidden power. And it wasn't that was antagonizing him to try to destroy him. It was trying to bring out that God energy or that goddess energy if you're a female. Same thing with Aquaman. So I would suggest, if you haven't seen either one of those movies, watch both. If you've seen one and you haven't seen the other, go watch the one you haven't seen. I want you to watch that movie and compare it with this movie and then adjust it to yourself. All right? So I want to run through that. What I'm going to talk about briefly now is how are some ways we can work with the Leviathan energy as black magicians. And then I'll go through the chat. I'll go through some of your questions and your comments. Well, very simple. If you're working with a pep, some say Apophis in the Greek, that's connected to, we know the mythology or the symbolism in the ancient texts in Egypt, how that connects to Set. Set recognized, as I've said before, that Apophis, a pep was a constant manifestation of his real self. And this is why he was constantly destroying it. And this is why it constantly resurrected every day. He knew that in order for the chaos not to consume him, he had to keep it at bay and use it, to utilize it, to do his bidding, to utilize the energy for his control. Whereas in the other stories, Ra and the other deities were trying to suppress and completely annihilate and destroy a pep. And they were unsuccessful because you can't do that. Chaos will always come to the surface. That's the message to be seen in those stories when you read the Apep chaos energy in ancient Egypt. Chaos will always be there. And when you get chaos in harmony, there will be points where it becomes unharmonized. And it's up to you as the magician to do the work to keep that harmony within yourself and not let it run amok where it can be destructive. It can only be destructive if you allow it. Great rituals to do with this. Let me give you there's some quick rituals you can do and to see to adjust this how you see fit. What I like to do on my altar when working with a pep, chaos, Leviathan, you might have seen it. When I started to utilize this, I went and got an image of two black snakes. They're actually prop snakes. I keep them on my altar on each side. I have the pentagram in the middle, set at the head. One thing I like to do is take two black candles, put it on each side of that imagery. I like to go into a visualization. I look at Set, I look at the pentagram, I look at the chaos. The chaos, this represents, this is the visualization I get, and I'm going to tell you what I do when I go into it. And you can see fit to adjust this how you see fit. It represents to me, because this is the imagery that I created in my subjective. You can adjust this and do whatever the fuck you want with it. That there's chaos around you at all times. But when I look at the center, the pentagram of Set with Set standing over it, with the Pekibet knife, I tap into all the imagery. The Pekibet knife represents that Set can cut off, separate, annihilate, destroy, and clear those paths that need to be cleared and utilize. When he makes those adjustments with the Pekibet, he's in control. He's in the center. That's why I place the swerving, and it's a snake that's kind of in that swerving in. If you've seen it, maybe I'll show it to you in a second. Set. I have it centered for a reason. All this creates an imagery in my psyche as I'm doing my meditation and my visualization. What am I doing when I tap into that? Once I'm locked in onto that, I tap into the pep energy. I start thinking about bringing things to the surface that instill concern, worry, and fear. Let's be real. And let me tell you what comes to the surface when you lock in. Let's not front. Let's be real. Sometimes we don't like to address the real things in life. The fear of death. When I say the fear of death, I'm not talking about what I lock in on an emotional level that comes to the surface when I do it, and everybody else might get something else out of it. I visualize what it would be like if I am not here physically, and how would it affect those around me. And I want to tap into what they would feel like. We wonder this. Let's be real. Fear of dying from or concern, I should say. I won't say fear. Concern from dying from some tragic disease or cataclysmic event or some serious accident. All this stuff comes to the surface. You let it come to the surface, because this is how you work with the Apep energy. Whatever you fear, maybe you have fear of heights. Maybe you have fear of drowning. Because I know I have fear of deep water because I can't swim. And I'm doing things to conquer those fears. All of these human emotions that create the chaos and fear come to the surface. So how you overcome them is you embrace them and tap into them and get the emotional core essence of that feeling and how it makes you feel. But I also like to visualize what it would be like if I was not here and how those around me would feel. I also tap into not having significant others here, parents, recently losing my father and my mother years ago. When you do this ritual, it's an emotional purge, literally. You will find at times in this ritual, you will cry like a little biatch. You will laugh. You will giggle. Here's the beauty of it if you do it right. When you're done towards the end, what comes to the surface, once you address all that, I'm going to describe it the best way I can in words. It's such a feeling of joy that I can't put into human description. It's like after having seen all that chaos energy will take you back to the point now where you are. And you start to now reflect on what you are dealing with, what you are in control, the things that you might have overlooked as super positives and joys in your personal life. The feeling you get when you're done, because psychologically, you addressed the chaos. When I say address the chaos, you address the chaos that is in that deep. Remember, it represents the chaos energy, as it said in one of them biblical quotes, right? You address that chaos that's been laying deep and dormant, just like the sea, the deep abyss of the sea. Symbology in these stories represents the deep, dark abyss of your subconscious mind. You went into the deep abyss of the sea, which is the mind, and you dug up everything in that deep abyss that you fear. This is how, another great example for those that might ask, how do you address and deal with your bullshit? Well, working with the PEP and the ritual I just explained, I want to make this clear. You do not have to do it exactly that way. I'm giving you an example. You can create something out of that. That's what I created. That's what works for me. I keep that set up on my altar continuously. Because one thing that came to me one day, I said, you know what? I got all this stuff there, but I need to have something there that's an imagery that reminds me of a PEP or chaos or this Leviathan energy. Something needs to be in place there as a reminder too. It triggers in my mind. Never get comfortable, because just when you think you got your shit together and you're smooth and you're the Mac Daddy, Macalicious, whatever the fuck you think you are, then you start getting comfortable. The PEP symbology and energy reminds me too, never be fucking comfortable with anything. Never get locked into doing something that makes you feel comfortable, because that's when a PEP or chaos will come up and snatch you in the ass, okay? It's a reminder as an adept on this path, I must be sharp at all times on my game. I can never get complacent, never get comfortable. I can never get locked into a specific thing, because then my skills become weak. And you can never, this is why Ra was kind of really the deities that these Kemetic people gravitate towards in Kemetic information are the weak deities, the ones that are taken advantage of, that can be manipulated. And Set was like, fuck that. Set was like, look, you motherfuckers got it all backwards. You can't destroy energy. That's number one. Understand that. Energy can never be destroyed. It can be manipulated. Let me say that again. It can be manipulated, but it can't be destroyed. We are beings of light and energy. How many different cultures, schools of alchemy have taught this? Right? We multiply, we never die. Colors. Now, let me stop. I had a colors flashback. But we can't be destroyed. We've been told this in many metaphysical circles, that when we evolve and make the transition and we rest in power, the physical decomposes and goes back into the elements, but the soul continues to live on forever. Our consciousness continues to live on forever. Now, I don't want to get into the whole reincarnation thing. That's a whole nother story. That comes into play. I'm not going to get into that now, because it's going to sidetrack us from where we're going. And there's a lot of controversy on that. You can't destroy energy. Now you got to go back when I've been saying for years, everything connects to vibrations, frequencies, and energy. And the speed of those vibrations and frequencies and energy and how you perceive them and how you tap into them. Well, that's how a magician is able to master his craft. That's why you hear me keep telling you, go back and study and master the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. Trust me, that is like the basic foundation and blueprint of how to tap into the power of your subjective realm. The problem is, like religion, in a lot of these conscious circles, and again, I got to keep it real, in the Kemetic community, they have you focusing on ma'at all the time. Ma'at this, ma'at that, ma'at blah, 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 blah. Well, you can't master ma'at if you have not mastered the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. Why am I saying that? The principles of ma'at deal with mastering the physical realm or the objective. The Hermetic principles of Tahuti, or as some call the Kabbalion, I want to make, not the Kabbalah. Some people confuse the two. I get emails all the time. Some people think the Kabbalah, which is Hebrew mysticism, and Kabbalion are the same thing. They're not. The Kabbalion by the 3 initiates, as it's called in the Greek, or the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. Hermetic or Hermeticism is another Greek word. All right. So again, I said earlier, understand the wordplay and the Hermetic, understand the wordplay and the etymology of these words. Very important. All right. In those blueprints of the 7 Hermetic principles, a lot of the stuff we are talking about is encoded in there if you really understand it. All right. But for anybody that comes to me, because, you know, cats like to gravitate towards shit they like. Everything is ma'at. You must seek ma'at. You must seek balancement. You must be balanced. And as I said before, I don't like to use that word because when you say you are balanced, you're stagnated. You're not moving. You're not vibrating. Remember, in the 7 Hermetic principles, it says nothing is ever at rest. Nothing is ever still. It's constantly moving and vibrating at a certain frequency. Even when we stand still, I see you, you see me. We see each other because we're vibrating at such a low frequency. And I've used this analogy all the time. If I keep doing this with my finger, the faster I go, it creates the illusion that it's sped up, but it's just a vibration and the frequency has sped up, but it hasn't moved, or has it? That's the thing you got to ask yourself. Remember, the Hermetic principles say nothing ever rests. Nothing is ever still. It is constantly moving and vibrating. Liken that to the power of what we are as beings of light and energy. If we, in alchemy, as it teaches us, when we make ourselves less dense, we remove those things that are slowing down our vibration and frequency. When we remove the things that make us dense, we are able to astral travel, to tap into, I'm going to use basic terms we can connect to, the spiritual realm. You understand what I'm saying? What keeps us dense? Those things, when we can't control our emotions, when we can't control our lusts, our jealousy, our envy, our greed, when we can't control our materialistic indulgences. And I haven't said that. I'm not saying not to indulge, because the doctrine of indulgence is part of this path. But remember, you indulge with discipline. Everybody's level of discipline is going to vary from person to person. So step 1 in becoming a master, a god, or a goddess is, what are those things that are binding you and keeping you dense, where your frequency and your vibration is so low that you can't tap into these spiritual things. You can't get the messages. You can't get the communication. You can't get the inspiration. Your pineal is calcified. It's your conductor is shut down. You're not in connection with shit. And then you wonder why you're not getting no results. Well, it's real simple. Trust me, people, it's real simple. I say it's real simple because, look, I'm going to keep it 100. This is what I do. And I'm not saying that I have it all figured out, because I don't. But I am saying I know enough to know what I'm talking about in this particular topic, because I see it all the time, especially in dealing with clients. When you do clients and consultations, that's what consultation work is for, to bring out the best in that individual, to give them the solutions that they can carry out for themselves to get the desired results, so they live a better, productive life, and they can be their best spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I never leave out financially. All right. This is fact, people. These are all reasons why we should be on this path. So when we look at the serpent energy, Leviathan, Aquaman, King Arthur, Atlantis, these motherfuckers are throwing stuff at us left and right. It's like, I look at it, it's like they're saying, you dumb motherfuckers, wake up. And mind you, the people and the creators of these movies front on the surface like they're in the mainstream Christian world. That's the fucked up part. Half of the people that advocate Christianity don't even believe in the shit. I'm talking about your powerful people. I'm not talking about your local Reverend Porkchop. You know, your spooked, dumbed down, Bible thumping Christian that's completely dead and asleep. I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about your powerful, influential people. Look, the picture is clear, crystal. So I would suggest, I'm going to go to the chat in a minute. I would suggest this movie has so many hidden messages in it. This movie can create, I know it did for me, inspiration in your own personal work. Any place where you can draw inspiration to motivate you is a beautiful thing. And again, I want to thank the person. I know it was something, might have been Perfection 33. If that was the person, we can go back in the video and look. And I believe they had brought that up. The timing was perfect because I now got to reflect and look at it in my life because I'm always trying to connect the dots. I said, look, Holy Death, Leviathan followed. Somebody suggested Leviathan. Then, now mind you, when I shot that video, I had already bought my Aquaman tickets online. I want to make sure I throw that part in. So that was already planned to see. So anytime like a main feature movie comes out that I want to see, and you know how they still sell the tickets like a week or two before, I usually do that because I don't like to wait in line. I just like to have my shit scanned on my phone, bam, go in. I don't like to deal with all that bullshit. But I looked at the time and then I put it all in sequence and said, this is perfect. This is the spirit, the personal Damon communicating these messages. And I keep telling people, once you lock into your personal Damon, quote unquote, your higher self, in lighter systems, they call it your guardian angel, if that's what you need, and makes you feel good. Once you tap into that true self, shit just starts to flow. And it all works in coordination and sequence. It's a beautiful thing. Okay? All right. So what I am going to do now, I'm going to scroll back up to the top. Looks like you guys typed in a bunch of shit, which I'm happy to see. I want some questions on this. Not just questions. I want you guys to add your comments on this. What are your thoughts on this? I also would like to throw out there, if you did see the movie, I'm giving you what I got out of it. So that I'm sure there's many other things other people got that I completely missed. So let me say that. Having said what I just talked about, I'm not saying the way I just broke the movie down is that's how you should look at it. I would like to hear your feedback if you did see the movie. What messages did you get from the movie? How do you connect it to your occult path, your path of being an adept, your path of self-mastery? What messages did you get out of it? What did it communicate to you? I'm sharing what it communicated with me, and I'm sure there's going to be some similarities in that. I'm sure a lot of the things that I just discussed, you can connect with that. I'm sure you can, but we'll see. And I want to say, I know they're probably not here because they're busy. Sister Mandy, Mama Muerte, and her husband Dave, they were here this weekend. I actually had them here at the house. Great people. I had a chance to meet their kids. Really, really nice family. I know some of you know Mama Muerte, aka Mandy, and Dave. Dave, one of the funniest, joyful people you ever meet, but also has a serious, stern side. But it's good. I bring that up because it's good to when you put names and faces, and I'm only bringing them up to some of the people I see regularly, Sister Sonia, I see Myra, pretty much at every work that we do. It's good that you could put the faces to some of the stuff, and it's good when you see, I can see when I look at these people as time goes by, I can see them growing and changing. And even in their hardships and even in the things that they deal with, their approach is different. Because I can look at some of them, I'm not going to say names, I can look at some of them that may not have been dealing with the adversity the same way they deal with it now. I bring that up because that's mastering the chaos or the pep energy. So I just wanted to throw that in there. All right, so let's see what we got. All right, anyway, peace and greetings. If I ain't greet you personally when you came in the room, Peace and greetings to everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in, supporting the channel. There is super chat at the bottom. I never ask for donations of money, but I just let people know there is super chat at the bottom. If you hit that, you can donate $1, $2. It just helps with things that we do. But again, it's not mandatory. I don't really ever ask for any donations. I do this because I love to do it. Personal work, yes, that's not free. And I've mentioned that before, and I had to address that in the last video because some people get a little confused with that. All right, so let's see. Let's look. All right, Shamanic Mystic looks like the first one. I'm not going to really get into the personal comments and the discussions you have amongst each other for the sake of time. I really just want to focus on comments and questions in relation to what we're building on. So I will skip the conversation you're having amongst each other unless it's a comment that might relate to what we're talking about. Then I will read some of those, okay? All right, Shamanic Mystic 1 says, Peace King, I was waiting for this. I seen Aquaman and it was good along with the video. Please speak on his name, Arthur. He too obtained the trident like King Arthur had to pull Excalibur. Okay, so I know you typed that in earlier, so I did address that a little earlier. And that's why I want people to go back and watch King Arthur, Excalibur, the trident. Again, that tool, like I said, you'll see it in many different stories, cultures, mythologies. Like I said, I mentioned Kali, etc. Yes, he had to obtain that trust. Same thing, King Arthur. Remember, in the scene in the movie, and speaking what Shamanic Mystic is saying, remember when he was still, because remember he had quote unquote a teacher, an elder who was a master and was teaching him his craft. You'll see that theme play itself over and over in these stories. But remember when he first tries to grab, this trident like King Arthur, when he was still in doubt, remember, he just tried to grab it recklessly in one scene in the movie and he couldn't. Remember, they said the one who was able to remove it from where it was being secretly hidden and it was locked in this sacred place, that would be the only person that had the ability to do that was the one who was the true heir, quote unquote, to the throne. Well, when he still goes into with his mortal, weak-minded mentality, he tries to randomly pull it. He can't do it. It becomes too powerful and overwhelms him. Long story short, when he gets to the point, like Aquaman, where he comes to the realization of who and what he really is, he's now able to possess. So the theme there is you need to overcome your bullshit. You need to overcome your weaknesses. You need to come to the realization of who and what you really are, not who you think you are. There's one thing you hear me say constantly over the years in these videos. We have this triad that we've created about ourselves. I say triad, the Greek word for three. What is that triad? It's the person you try to portray yourself as, right? There's the person you want people to see you as, and then there's just the one that only really counts. Then there's who you really are. Once you start accepting who you really are and all that other shit fades away, then you come into that realization, just like we'll talk about the two characters because it's in line with the subject matter tonight. Then just like King Arthur or Aquaman, you now have raised yourself up to the status of a god/goddess. Okay? One thing I didn't talk about in the movie, his female counterpart, she's the man, I can't remember the name of the king that they used there. Somebody might be able to help me out with that. She was the daughter of the king that was working side by side with Aquaman's brother. Can't remember the name. If somebody remembers, please throw that out there. They show you too, when you look at that, there's always the harmony of the masculine, feminine energy, right? Because really the one who was teaching him throughout the journey, the critical lessons in life that he needed to learn, because she saw the weakness in him, but she also saw the ability on how to bring it out. Because she says something to him, even though you may not see yourself as a divine king, quote unquote, because he kept doubting himself. Even though she knew he had issues, that feminine energy was what brought it out of him. There's a science in that too. So I don't want to negate that. Pay attention to that as the movie goes on too. But yeah, good comment by Shamanic Mystic. And again, if you have not seen the King Arthur movie, I know there's been a couple of King Arthur movies out over the years. Go get the one that just came out a year ago, the most recent one. Great story, especially in the beginning when they're on the bridge and war is taking place. That's a representation of the chaos. And those that are losing to the war, they're being thrown off the bridge, tossed into the deep seas. Man, there's so many, there's so much symbolism in these fucking movies. It's ridiculous. All right. Yes, I want to speak. If you saw the video I put out yesterday, if you are practicing Luciferian, now that this winter solstice is just upon us, what this December 25th day in this solstice represents, as we know, it was the day with the shortest amount of daylight, especially if you're close to the southern hemisphere. It literally gets dark late, real early. It's a great time to do a Luciferian ritual, which was something that I did yesterday. It's a great time to acclimate yourself to these different elements and forces. And as we know, in Luciferian magic, there's a lot of sorcery in working with the elements, working with the micro and the macrocosm. It's a great time. I suggested people, if you go into Richard Page's book, Richard K. Page, I believe his name is, the Alter Ego, Luciferian, he's got a ritual in there that's geared for the solstice, especially the 25th. You don't have to be the 25th. I suggest you do it, especially around these last days, because these are the darkest days of the year, and it represents that point of darkness coming in, out of that darkness coming into that light, which reflects the inner intellect. And that's done by doing certain work on the chakras. Now, it'll show you different methodologies where you place your hands, different symbols, how to touch and activate the chakras, which is very important, starting from the root all the way up to the crown. I suggest you perform this ritual naked. It's the best way to do it. It's not mandatory. He'll suggest that you do it. I find it to be the most positive, because what being naked in the ritual represents, you in your pure state, your pure, how you came into the world. You didn't come into the world with any clothes on. It also reminded me, and I'm not going to get into the depths of it, on the second degree of OTO, which I went through. You literally walk into the lodge completely naked, literally naked with nothing on. You're asked, and it's put in a riddle form, you're asked to enter the lodge the way you came into the world. I'm going to leave it at that. The second degree of Order Templi Orientis is very Luciferian in nature. If you are or have been a member of OTO, you know what I'm talking about. I haven't been, being a third degree adept in that order, went through that. And it definitely connects you to something Luciferian. So again, the importance to me is not to have anything on, nothing to hinder you. And you'll find as you absorb the energies of the ritual, and you can utilize this ritual with candles, skulls. It connects you with that roar. Again, it represents you emerging from that chaos and coming into being of what you really are. Because the ritual is centered around regeneration and renewal and coming into the real light of intellect. So I want to throw that again out there today. I mentioned that a little bit yesterday in the video I did yesterday. It wasn't a live video. I just shot like a 30-minute video and posted it. So this is a great time to do Luciferian work. A lot of Luciferian work, Luciferian magic and rituals is centered around the solstices, because there's a lot of elements of Luciferian magic that deal with nature and the elements. So I want to throw that out to the people that do incorporate Luciferian magic on their path. And I want to make this clear, you don't have to be a full-fledged Luciferian to do that work. Some people get that kind of fucked up. You don't have to make a declaration that you're Luciferian. Anybody can do that ritual or work. So I've found it very empowering. But it is a path that it's always been one of my paths of interest for several years now. Even though there was things years back that I look back and reflect on now that I was doing that was very Luciferian in nature. I didn't look at it back then because I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but very, very empowerment on all levels. All right. Yeah, Nathan 22 mentions Leviathan from Hellraiser. Yeah. You have a connection to that in the Hellraiser series with Pinhead, if you guys remember that movie. Another good movie to check. Yeah, what you're going to find out when we're talking about and discussing these things, it's going to trigger other shit from the past too. And that's a good point. Forgot about that. You will see this. But again, look at the occult, right? We say something in the occult called exoteric and esoteric, right? You hear this term in alchemy and metaphysics. Exoteric is the surface meaning or breakdown of something. Esoteric is the hidden meaning or the secret meaning, right? Or the word occult, which means hidden, right? We always apply that on this path because that's why I said earlier, you got those that read and those that study. I found out over the years, and it's not to judge or knock anybody, we have a lot of book readers. You always hear me say that. We have a lot of people that read books and regurgitate information that they remember. That's not a person that has studied and has gotten the breakdown, the hidden meanings and how they apply it to themselves. And I'm saying those hidden meanings ain't going to be the same for everybody. So it's easy for me when I'm building with somebody and talking with somebody and having a conversation with somebody. It's very easy for me to see who is a reader and who studies. Because if you got to just regurgitate shit out of a book, and that was one of the reasons why I said, because I didn't like it after I started doing it for a while. That was one of the reasons why I said I don't like to do these videos no more, just reading out of a book. Because to me, it was going against the very principles I was speaking about. Because if I wasn't doing it in that sense, because trust me, those that know me, I don't need a book to do any goddamn class. Those that have attended my live classes, I could talk for 5, 6, 7 hours straight, and I've done it. I even have videos up of it. So I don't need the book. But what I found was it created the redundancy. And it kind of puts you in that boat. If you need a book to trigger your remembrance and breaking down information, then you're just a book reader. That's it. You don't really apply the information. The information isn't embedded in you where it's a part of you. It's just you need the information to control you. That's along the lines where the book is now being the dictator of the information as opposed to you utilizing the book and being the dictator and control over it. So I don't like to use the books no more in the videos because I just thought it became very redundant. And as I said before, if you go back to the first couple of years I was doing videos, I didn't use any books. That is something I probably started about a year ago. So that is over. I won't be doing that no more. I will refer to books. As you see, I throw books on those. You can read that shit in your own time. And it just, to me, it becomes boring. And I think it kind of takes people's attention and focus off of the topic. I think when you have the live interaction like this and we're just building, that's the school that I came up, old school. That's what we did. We did this out in the streets. We used to set up tables. This is how we would build, communicate and talk with the people. That's the era that I come from. And to me, that's the most effective method. Yeah, you got people there. Like, I've never been that type of person. You like people that like to do PowerPoints, and that's good too. I'm not knocking that. I will give references here and there. I'm just not one that likes to. It doesn't resonate and vibrate with me. It's just me. I've never been one to have all these elaborate PowerPoints and all this stuff from books. There's some people that's their thing. They can't do shit without a book. And to me, what that says is if you need the book and you got to depend and rely on the book, then you ain't got it in here and you ain't got it in here. I'm sorry. And as I started using the book in all the videos, I was like, you know what? This shit is redundant. It started to actually make me feel uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest with you. And I said, I'm going to stop this shit. I said, I just made up my mind. I said, I'm not going to fucking, I'm not saying I will occasionally point something out in the book like when I was going through biblical quotes. I might point. But I'm not going to sit there and read through a whole section of the book. That shit is corny. So that shit is over. Anyway. All right. What else we got? I think Gypsy Goddess is giving me too much credit. But anyway, I'll read it because it references the kids. She says, you're so amazing. I don't know if I'm amazing. You might want to get to know me a little better. My wife might differ. Am I amazing, babe, or am I a pain in the ass? Pain in the ass, see? So that kills all the amazing stuff. You're lucky to have access to learn. Again, a master teacher. How did you get to this level? 40 years, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Well, anybody, long story short, has the ability to get to whatever level that they choose that they want to get to. And what is that based on? Applying yourself. You always hear the term used in the videos, putting in work. No, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect. You're still going to have problems. You're still going to have obstacles. You're still going to deal with bullshit because that's the reality of life. But it makes it a little bit easier. I don't say a lot easier in dealing with the bullshit. So the beauty of it is when you mention the kids, right? This is what our job is. This is one of the reasons why we're here. See, sometimes we get caught up because we think all this is for us. Remember, a lot of us that came into this, here's the difference between us and when we came, now we're in the information and we give birth to kids. Most of our kids are going to get the instruction that we couldn't get because we had to come through a system that was just enforced upon us. Babe, can you do me one favor? Babe, can you just turn that fan on low, please? We most of us came through, I'm not saying all of us, but most of us in some shape, form, or fashion came through, we were influenced or came through religious upbringing. The difference between when we're in this information and knowledge now, we give birth to our kids, they can be taught both aspects. See, we didn't get that. We didn't have that choice. I say that to say sometimes we get caught up and we think that this is really about us when it's not. Stop fooling yourself because you're going to spend a lifetime of getting all this mental indoctrination out of you. It's not something you're going to be able to do in a few years. You might fool yourself and think yourself, I know a lot of people like to think they're at a point where, oh, none of that. I'm past all that stuff. No, you're not. Trust me. So long story short, the beauty is being able to now pass it on to your kids that have come after the fact, where they're being able to get both sides. They can see what the world is offering. They can be exposed to the religion, but at the same token, they have this to counteract it, where they can put it all into perspective. That's the purpose of why we do what we do. And that's why I say it's your responsibility not to convert people, but to teach and educate people. See, in all those other, dogmas and groups and organizations, their goal is they're trying to forcefully convert people to their methodology because a lot of those groups, religions and philosophies promote a philosophy that we're right and everybody else is wrong. That's not what we do on this path. It's not our job. Whatever anybody wants to do, that's their business. That's not your job. I don't care if you choose to be a Christian. Be the best Christian that you want to be. Just don't try to force that shit on other people that may not choose that path. Vice versa. I don't force my path on anybody that doesn't choose it or maybe doesn't resonate with it. That's the difference. That's the wisdom you start to obtain as you get older and mature. I'm not interested. Now, years ago, I ain't gonna lie. I would look for Christians and want to bash them upside the head and debate with them. I don't care for that no more because that, to me, is a waste of time and energy. So that's why I said earlier in the very beginning of the video, it is your responsibility when the right time presents itself to teach and educate somebody. You don't go looking for people to go smack them upside the head and force upon them what you know so you can make yourself feel big and important. That's what an immature imbecile does. We don't do that stuff. So we realize when the time is right and it presents itself, we teach and educate. I ain't on a mission to save people. That's not what my job is. I'm not interested in it. I gave that up many years ago. My purpose is to teach and educate, put information out there. You do with the information you decide you want to do with it. And I've said this many times in videos, and this is not a disrespect. I couldn't give a fuck what you do with it or what you don't do with it. That's your personal business. I'm not interested in that. But anyway, all right, what else we got? All right, looking for some questions and comments. Yeah, the hat. I see Gypsy comment on the hat. My son got me this hat for Christmas, a Knicks hat. Yeah, it reminds me of the break-in era. I don't know why. That's why I put it on. I like the graffiti of it. It's actually a Knicks hat. And he's one thing about my son. He is my older son. He is an older soul when it comes to culture and music. He's 26. Very thorough on history of hip hop. Part of that was my influence, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is his own. It's, he used the small influence that I threw on him and gravitated to that on his own. I mean, he listens to a lot of boom bap era stuff, Showbiz and AG, Lord Finesse, Cellar Dwellers. That's probably his favorite era. I mean, he goes back to the early 80s, the whole, classic Special Ed, BDP, Public Enemy. I've taken him to old school concerts. He doesn't listen to anything new. None of that trap rap shit and that sing along ABC 1, 2, 3. Old McDonald had a farm nursery rhymes. Doesn't listen to anything new. And again, it's not because I forced it on him. Was it an influence? Of course, because that's all he heard me listening to growing up and still listening to. But one thing when it comes to that, he's very connected to quote unquote b-boy culture, breakdancing, DJing, MCing, the culture and the art of it. And it's good. And I always hear him educating younger brothers on it. It's good to see a younger guy have that history because, look, I'm not trying to hate. Yeah, I'm an older dude. Obviously, we're going to be locked in our generation. So it might come across as hate. It's sad to me what quote unquote. See, rap and hip hop is two different things to me. They're not the same thing. But you know what I'm saying when I say that. What the music has become is very sad, in my opinion, from where it came from. Because as I said in previous videos, hip hop was given to the youth, to me, in my opinion, as a tool from the gods to speed up their intellect. Because look what it did. Look how it brought out the creativity in so many young kids when it came on to say how they were able to tap into the creativity of the subjective mind. And we created a culture out of it, graffitiing, it created art out of it, b-boying, breakdancing, DJing, the 5 elements of hip hop. You hear this all the time. There was a period, if you remember, now I'm saying my age now, but 47. When you go back to the 80s, when breakdancing and b-boying and DJ and graffiti, when the 5 elements were in full effect, as we like to say, a lot of the violence ceased amongst the gangs. We wasn't having fights. We was having battles, whether it was MC battles, whether it was breakdance battle, whatever it was. It kept us out of negativity. But these assholes saw that, and then they had to change the music. The music went from being educating and culturally uplifting. Then it shifted. You remember as you got into the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the gangster rap era came in. This was all done intentionally. They shifted the positivity. Now, I'm not saying all gangster rap music was bad because that told a story of things that were going on the street. I'm going to keep it real. It did. It was needed, but then they manipulated that. When you had some of them gangster groups that came on the scene, and probably NWA was the pioneers of it, that made it mainstream. There was a lot of underground artists prior to that. They manipulated that, and they took us right back into negativity. They did it with R&B in the 70s. When you had Teddy Pendergrass, when you had Marvin Gaye, Harold Melvin, and the Blue Note, all those, the OJs, then they shifted to Superfly pimp shit. So anytime that we became culturally aware and stimulated by the music, because as I said before, music and harmonics is the very fabric or glue that keeps things in harmony in the universe. And that music and harmonics is the vibration and frequency that links you in. And I've mentioned this a million times before, just think how therapeutic and healing music is. You know how music alters your mood and your state? A certain song that you vibe with, you resonate, it just can change your whole frequency. It can tap into the power of your subjective. Slow jams can make you reflect on relationships. Joyful music can make you reflect on your childhood, your upbringing, shit you heard around the house, shit your mother or father played. It makes you time travel, whether you're conscious of it or not. It taps into the very core of those vibrations, frequencies, and emotions. That's a reality. That's real, people. And I've said this before. I put together, man, one thing, greatest thing that ever came out was that Amazon Music app. I got playlists for every goddamn thing you can think of. I like to put playlists. I got playlists from my childhood. I'll sit down, boom, put my music on from that area, and I go into travel land. I got playlists from my 80s, 90s hip-hop era. Sit down, pop all that stuff on. I can relive all those moments when I was hanging out on the streets, hanging out with my boys. I can remember certain times being in certain of my friends' cars or my cars. I can remember certain times being at house parties, basement parties, etc. Right? I played music maybe from the later 90s as I became older and had my children. That music taps me into that time period. People don't realize the power of sound, vibration, frequency via music can stimulate that energy and bring you right back to that. That's why time is a fucking illusion and it doesn't exist. It's a mortal blockage that we create as mortals. We think that it controls us because we put a beginning and an end on it and we put ourselves in the middle. And as I said before, when you look at a secondhand clock, the mistake is there's no such thing as a second hand, it should be a first hand. And in between the tick and the tock, there's a space, and that time isn't being calculated. There's a tick, pause, tock. Who's calculating the fucking pause in between the tick and the tock? So the question is, this spiritual realm that we're all trying to lock into is in between the tick and the tock. These motherfuckers know that. That's why I referred you to the movie The House with the Clock in the Walls. There was a science with the clocks everywhere because they were synchronizing everything, not so much with linear or physical time, but they were synchronizing it at a certain moment that had to be activated. That's what the whole thing was centered on with the necromancy ritual in that movie. I'm trying to fucking tell you people, look, this shit is all, they know this. They've been knowing it. It's we have forgotten it. It's not that we don't know it. We have forgotten it. All of this ties into everything that we're talking about tonight. I know it's branching off into other areas, but it's all connected. And the questions and the comments are sparking it. So hopefully you caught that. All right. All right, what we got? All right, the Black Tower. So something interesting that comes to mind is Crowley saying, "Behold, I am a warrior lord of the 40s. The 80s cower before me and are based. The 40s represent the middle levels of the elements, aka." Yes. Crowley, and again, I have to go back to Thelema and the Order Templi Orientis, which I belong to, still an active member. When I say active, my membership, I may not attend the Oasis, as they call it, not the lodge. I may not attend my local Oasis as I used to. But Crowley tapped into a lot of these concepts that we're talking about tonight, that warrior, what you're talking about in reference to there. All of it has similarities as a whole, being connected again, coming into the realization of who and what you really are. We all have that potential of being this quote unquote supreme being, this god or goddess, shedding the mortal things that are weighing us down. And that statement, when he was making those statements, it's talking about the different phases or levels that one goes through as they grow. As you know, even if you read the Book of the Law, it can be a very confusing book at first if you're not familiar with Crowley's style of writing. He incorporates very vivid graphic imagery in his writings. It's very subjective by nature because it's personal. And he speaks in a lot of parables and metaphors, but metaphysical parables and metaphors. Some of the stuff he correlates, I found when I first started studying Crowley's writings years ago, I had to go back and reread them several times because one thing I know, especially when I read the Book of the Law, because when you go through the OTO Lodge and you're initiated on the Minerval degree, which is the 0 degree, which basically you have now been accepted. You're not really initiated yet. You have been accepted and given the opportunity to go through your first degree. It's kind of like a probation degree, if that's the best way I can describe it. They call it the Minerval degree, right? When you get on your first degree, you're presented with your own personal Book of the Law. You're given that. That's one of the things you get from the initiation. And parts of the degrees that in part of the degrees, there's excerpt of work from the Book of the Law, right? But I found out in my first encounters with it, I really had to take my time and read it. And one thing I found in reading Crowley's writings, and those that have studied some of his work, you cannot read that in a distracted frame of mind. You got to really have quiet focus and concentration, because this is just my experience. Other people might read it and maybe they get a different vibe with it. But my experience with it is it's very in-depth with imagery, symbols, parables, because that was Crowley trying to bring into the objective what was going on in his subjective. And as you know, with him, and if you are familiar with Crowley, people to an extent, he was a very complex individual. I know people like to promote the part of him, oh, hey, the beast incarnate. He was the devil, or the most wickedest man that ever lived on the planet. I don't look at it like that. A religious spooked out person would, because they've been highly influenced by what the occult is, what they think Satanism and devil worship is. Now, do I agree with, obviously, some of the things that Crowley did in his lifetime? Absolutely not. I do believe he did have problems, just like everybody else had problems. I do believe he was a disturbed individual. I think he struggled with his relationship with women and his children, when you understand the history of him. And I think he didn't know how to express himself in those regards. And I think he realized that when you look at some of his Libras and some of his works and some of his manifestos that he put out, especially through Thelema and the Order, but I didn't focus on just him. I got out of that work, how can I apply that to myself? Because I think though maybe his struggles aren't identically our struggles the same exact way, but they're very similar. We all struggle with those things. So I think Crowley was just one of those individuals that wasn't afraid to put that out there in the open. A lot of us are, and we're afraid for being ostracized or judged. Look how many people judge him for being what they, in their opinion, is they quick to go to judgment. Oh, he was crazy. He was this. He was that. Yes, he was those things at certain times, but just like we all can be those things at certain times. We all like to front like we're perfect and we ain't got no faults, like we don't do no wrongdoing, like we don't do fucked up shit. I find out the people that claim that, they're the ones that's doing the most fucked up shit. I don't care what anybody's saying. Anybody that's talking or judging other people is trying to take the attention off themselves because they got an agenda and they got something to hide. That's why I don't waste my energy and time getting into that, unless you want to be stupid enough to fucking provoke me. I'm not saying I won't defend and protect myself, but when somebody got diarrhea in the mouth and is talking shit, I just let them shit all over themselves. But we're quick to rush to judgment. You know, we're quick to not understand the situation because we may not connect with it or understand it. We're quick to pass judgment. But, you know, Crowley is a very complex individual, but you can learn a lot if you're on this path and you study some of his work. I have, because like I said, I am a member of the OTO, Order Templi Orientis. It has been a highly influential part of my journey of being a black magician. I wouldn't per se, in my opinion of where I'm at now, I wouldn't say Crowley and OTO and Thelema is really black magic. They might say they do work with aspects of the Baphomet energy, Pan. Like I said, if you've ever attended a Gnostic mass, they do invoke at the end of the mass. They do activate the Pan energy. They do acknowledge the Baphomet energy. But I think it's a lot of Eastern mysticism, that type of magic. It's what we call gray side magic, or high magic is what it's called in some occult circles. And to me, high magic isn't quote unquote really exactly black magic. But I have gotten a lot out of it. It has been an influence on my journey. I know that was a lot from that one comment, but all right, I think you get the point. Yeah, Gypsy Guys, the RH negative. Okay, people sometimes run with that as if people that have RH negative blood are like these accursed abomination beings. That's not true. The RH negative just confirms one aspect of evolution and creation. That's it. And I want to make this clear. When you go back to the Lars monkey, right? Darwin's theory. RH is the abbreviation of RH comes from one of those monkeys called the rhesus monkeys. And it's not a bad thing. It just confirms there is a connection. I don't want to get into all that shit now because that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. There is a connection with water beings, just like in Aquaman, amphibious, reptilian creatures, which got into mythology later on as mermaids and shit like that, etc. There is a connection with what we know as Lars monkeys, baboons, and apes. But not all evolution comes from that. Is that a part of our evolutionary growth and change? It is one aspect of it. That is a reality. RH blood is just confirmation and proof of some of those connections. I'm not going to run with that shit. I've heard in certain groups, organizations, dogmas, and circles, oh, if you have RH negative blood, it's this and that, it's that. Yeah, it is a unique blood because it can be very challenging for the individual from a medical and a health standpoint. But again, what it really does is confirm some of these things that they're trying to not really focus on when it comes to the origin of our existence. But again, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother time. I don't really want to get sidetracked with that now. All right. Yes, and I believe Black Towel that comments into the Aquaman movie, making him master of the primal element. Could be that comment can be placed on many different areas that we're talking about. And we all are masters of the primal. And when you're saying the word primal, which comes from the root prime, the English word prime, you're saying the original or the pure origin of something. It's in its original state. So when you're saying primal energy, right? When you're saying as that quote we read in Job, it referred to Leviathan as the primal chaos, right? There's nothing greater than the primal chaos, right? Because all things has its essence and origin out of the primal chaos. So when you hear that alchemical term, making order out of chaos, we should apply that to ourselves as magicians and adepts. Each one of us has a personal journey, which is to take that chaos, not make religious order out of it, but make order out of it in a sense where we can apply it to our lives to get the necessary desired results we need to be successful. So that should be one of our main focuses and goals on this path, is to become master of the primal elements. That's a good point. Yes, another good point. Black Tower types of myths containing occult secrets are told via storytelling. Yes, and mythology, which has root in the word method, is a method that's used to tell those stories. When you're reading a lot of these texts and stories in ancient Egypt and ancient Samaria and Babylon and whatever culture in Ifa, in Nigeria, West Africa, and all these different cultures, they used mythology and cultural stories to convey a message. What is centered around the principle, it's trying to explain what goes on within us, the internal battle that we face in here. And they were trying to convey that in these mythological stories in an external aspect. So now we can correlate. When you look at all the creation stories, even in Egypt, when you look at the story of Nut and Geb and Shu, it's creating a story. When you look at the imagery and the pyramids, what's up, buddy? You good? When you look at all those stories, the imagery and the mythology is trying to convey a message of what takes place within. So the ancestors try to, how can I take that and put it in something that's objective and external that people can connect with? That's the purpose of the mythology. We got to learn to utilize that concept as adepts and masters. Most definitely. Excuse me 1 second. Just got to do something with my little guy. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. But yeah, the mythology where we left off, and that's why I say with any of these stories, even with the Bible, right? And those that have taken the Bible and the Quranic, the seminar that we did on that, look at the metaphor. You got to focus on the symbolicism of the story, and I'll use something basic as David and Goliath, right? Fuck the literal aspect of it. We know that shit is not reality. But what it represents is overcoming obstacles. You have the little guy, the underdog, the one that's facing all of the impossibles. That represents us when we're on the path. We're faced with all these obstacles and challenges. Goliath would represent that Leviathan force, right? That chaos that we make into a monster. But when we strip it all away, we see we're the ones that have built that Leviathan, that chaos, that giant, that monster. Right? I can grasp that concept by reading the David and Goliath story. See, An occultist can read the Bible from Genesis to Revelations and get a whole different perspective. There are hidden meanings when you get into Lucifer, Venus, the Morning Star, all the things that we're talking about, Leviathan. There's hidden occult meanings in that. But if I want to even apply it, how can I apply them stories to myself in my journey? I can do that too. That's the difference of what we do and what other people don't do. So you can use that concept, whether it's Egyptian mythology, whatever you want to call it, you can apply it to religious mythology. See, it's just all how you perceive it and how you what? Put it into perspective for you. All right. Yes, the Lilith energy, just Goddess mentions that. That does tie into this because when you deal with serpent energy, Kundalini rising, Samael and Lilith have a connection with that. When you work with the Samael Lilith, when you look at the pentagram of Baphomet with the infernal union symbol with Samael and Lilith, you'll see me wear that pendant. It combines those forces and energy. It deals one with the masculine and feminine. I can even connect that to when I looked at Aquaman. When you look at him and the female, that's a representation of that Samael Lilith, masculine, feminine, harmonizing energy that each individual needs, whether they're male or female, in order to be successful on this path. So yes, there's a connection with that. Black Tower, this is definitely in line with Capricorn. Well done. Yes, there is a strong Capricorn energy to this knowledge, and as you know, we're at that sign. So definitely. Oni says the Sun, Saturn, Pluto, and the S node are all in Capricorn right now. People reaping what they have sown. Yes, and that Capricorn energy is very aquatic by nature, right? It deals with those primal elements. It deals with the movements of the planet. Now, I've talked about, to me, when you have time to plan your magic, not necessary, not mandatory, because a true master adept can work magic at any place at any time for any reason. And as I said before, magic, you got to learn, I mentioned this in the video yesterday, just driving to work, visualizing your day is magic. You got to learn to work magic when you're just making your ride in the morning to your destination, whether it's your job, your place of business, or your own business, whatever it is. When you're going about your day, see, I start magic from the time my foot hits the floor when I leave my bed. I don't just do it when it's convenient. This is a way of life. You live, eat, breathe, shit, piss, and sleep this shit. You understand? That's the difference of being an adept and somebody that just reads and regurgitates. So every day I have a ritual I do at my altar in the morning, as I explained. Every morning as I'm driving, because I know managing your time is magic. I know that roughly the time it's going to take to get to my destination. Visualizing your day and visualizing how you want it to be, the outcome and the results you want. And then the most rewarding thing is seeing them results at the end of the day. Is it going to happen every single time? No. But then you're able to reflect at the end of the day what you didn't accomplish and then roll that over into your next day. All these little goals. I always tell people, start with setting small goals, which lead to bigger goals. Stop creating unrealistic goals. I want to be a millionaire and have my own business. Well, why don't we accomplish the steps that lead up to that first? That's where people fail. They set unrealistic goals that are too far out. They get discouraged. They get knocked off the path, and they just go back to doing the same old shit that they were doing. You'll find if you set these small, immediate goals, you're motivated to accomplish them right away, and they start leading to bigger and greater goals. This is the pathway to success in getting results. Trust me when I tell you, people. All right? All right, what else we got? No, the Black Tower typed in early. I know that was a while ago. Never had a plan to watch this movie. Now I just made. Yeah, I would. I mean, if you're on this bag, yeah, I mean, it's your choice. Not mandatory, but I think if you are a person on this path that studies this type of information and knowledge, and whether you call it the occult, left-hand path, path of self, whatever. If you're on this path in some shape, form, or fashion, I personally think an individual will get a lot of stuff out of it personally. I really do. I know I did. What else we got? Yeah, Olokun, that's another good point. In the Ifa pantheon, the Ifa spiritual system, that's right. Olokun, who is the goddess, so connected to the whole pantheon of Yemaya, but she's the goddess of the deep abyss, the underwater. And you'll see sometimes she's depicted, don't really have a face, and she's kind of can be depicted as big and kind of looks like a monster. That's a good point. And there's that connection with Leviathan and this whole concept that we're talking about with the deep, dark, chaotic abyss with Olokun, because she's the deep goddess of the deep abyss of the ocean, right? So I'm sure there's other cultures that we didn't cover them all. I'm sure people can probably think of some other ones. But this is why I think it's a good thing you go see this, because that's the beauty of what we're doing right now. We're connecting it. We're like, oh, shit, it's connected with Olokun. Oh, shit, it's connected with that. Oh, the Trident's connected with that. See, what it's doing is unlocking a part of our psyche that we're tapping into the power and ability to get that personal understanding we need. When we get that personal understanding and we assimilate that knowledge, it becomes a reality, what we call personal truth. What is personal truth? Real truth or personal truth is when one raises themselves up to the reality of that truth. That's when truth becomes truth. That's why we ask, what is truth? Truth isn't just because somebody said something and a group of people agree with it. That can be an illusionary truth. Truth it's when you confirm it as a reality for yourself. That's when it becomes truth. What we're doing, that's the purpose of what we're doing now. It's a beautiful thing. No? All right, what else we got here? Oni says, yes, my mom was born veiled and my daughter has extreme abilities I believe were inherited from her grandmother. Yes, you can inherit some spiritual gifts via the DNA. That is a reality. All right, what else we got? All right, let's skip some of the personal comments. I'm looking for a question. What else we got? Yeah, that's a good point by the Black Tower. The Queen of Hell, the Red King, and the Scorpion Guard are one hell of a Trinitarian set of writing covering the Trinity as well. And you'll find this Trinity concept or triad concept very prominent also in ancient Egypt, triune gods. And this is really why all of these ancient triads or trinities that predate Christianity is where Christianity was influenced to come up with the Trinity, right? Now, by the way, if you do your research, speaking on that, the only place you find the Trinity mentioned in the Bible, and that verse was inserted, do your research, is in the first letter of John, 5:7, not the Gospel of John, first letter of John. It mentions Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the triune God is one, which is a bunch of illusionary fuckery and delusional bullshit. Well, they got a lot of that concept, but they dumbed it down and spooked it out and fed it to the masses. The Trinity is something that's really more prominent in Catholicism. A lot of non-sectarian or non-denominational Christians have different methodologies of their concept of the Trinity. But when you do your historical research and the history of the Nicene Council, when they put the books of the Bible together, and especially the King James Version, and it's worded different, and you know what? I'm gonna see how it is. I never really. Let me see what it is in this Oxford Annotated Bible, how they word it. You got to be careful because the fuckery with the words, they're masters at that shit. And to the ignorant that don't know, they can get caught up in that. I just want to see something real quick. All right, I got it right here. I'll read it to you since I have the holy book. Praise God. All right, stop. Let me stop. Stop clowning. Let me see something real quick. I put on old man glasses, right? All right, so here's how they word it in the Oxford Annotated Bible, the Trinity. It's the only place in the entire Bible you will find this concept explained, and it was inserted, by the way. Do your research. There are three that testify, the Spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree. Now, the King James Version says these three are one. If you go into the New King James, says something along this lines. And that's the other fucker you got to be careful when you're doing your research when it comes to religious theology. There's so many different translations, they've changed this shit around so much that it can become very confusing. But that quote, and again, if you are or choose to do further research in that area, that's in the first letter of John, not the Gospel of John. First letter of John, chapter 5, verse 7 is the only place it's ever mentioned anywhere. And the reason why it's mysteriously only mentioned once is because they inserted it after the fact. Because they inserted it because when Roman Catholicism needed justification to get people in line with their theology, mortal men decided to get together at the Council of Nicaea and say, hey, let's put this in there. It's convenient. This is how we can control the masses and keep them controlled. Because how can you teach a theology that you can't find in any scripture when you say the basis of your theology is this book called the Bible and these scriptures? Now, the fucked up part about it is most people, don't even know what the word on the cover means. The word Bible is a Greek word. It comes from the word biblios, which means small book. This isn't a fucking small book. Okay, I don't think this is small at all. Biblios. Some people don't even know what the word church means. Church is a Greek word that means to congregate. So I like to ask religious people, you're so religious, spiritual, what does the word church and Bible mean? If you can't explain the place where you go and the book that you read, if you don't even know what that means on the surface, I already know what conversation we're going to have right after that. That's basic shit you should know. But unfortunately, they don't. And it's our job to make that stuff aware. But anyway, making me catch the Holy Spirit up in this bitch. Let's raise the roof. No, it's not. Let me stop clowning. All right, what else we got? Yes, Oni says, only people who have awareness of these symbols and imagery recognize those things. Yes, that comes with, again, doing work, being disciplined. Once you are locked in and tuned, I mentioned this real earlier in the video, you start to get the communications and the message. I call that's when you know you're starting to make that connection with your personal daemon, your higher self, your real self. And daemon is just the Greek word for higher self. It's what the Greeks used for a higher aspect of themselves, which falsely got translated later on in time through monotheism and religion, where we get the English word demon, which is affiliated with all negative connotations and definitions. Do the research on that. So that's when you're locked in with that personal daemon, things start to click. And that's the purpose of doing demonic integration work. The Black Ship. You've heard me talk about that book now for a while. Actually, that's some work we recently did in some of the classes, demonic integration, which to me is the core foundation. It's like building a house. You got to do work to be able to tap into, quote unquote, that personal daemon or higher self, because you can't bypass that, the who and what you really are, and start going outside of that and doing all types of crazy shit. Because you're not, you can, not that you can't, but you're going to find you won't get consistent results. So what I teach people when I work with them is, one, you got to start doing the work to unlock the personal daemon, the real you. Once you have connected with that, trust me when I tell you, and I can only say it so much in words, when you experience it, it's a whole nother level. Okay. Oni says your daughter will be 26 on Saturday. Well, I met your daughter. Tell her I said happy birthday. Means you're getting old, Oni. Let me stop. And actually, like I say, Oni doesn't look her age. I will say that. She definitely don't look her age. All right, what else we got? I don't know if you pronounce it. Could be two ways to pronounce that. Kuaba, could be two ways. Rael, Connecticut in the house. All right, peace to Connecticut. Black Tower says, happy early birthday to Oni, daughter. Cool. All right, what else we got? Yeah, and that's true, Black Tower. The bastards in these stories I found are the reluctant or unknown hero archetype. Yeah, there's always that. And again, there's always that representation of that. I've found that it's always like even in King Arthur, like when they show the history of how he was raised, he ran the streets, he was wild. We can connect a lot of that shit to ourselves because that was us at one point. And don't just look at the literal. It don't mean he was just running wild physically. Sometimes it's a mental thing. We were all over the place. Just think, all of us went through. I know I did, and I'm sure most of us had a similar experience. Just think when you were really searching before you were trying to get to this path. think of how there was a guy, there had to be a point you can reflect back on in your life where you were all over the place. You were experimenting with so much shit. Not that it was a bad thing. It's just you were so hungry. You were eager and so hungry for the knowledge, but you went you were all over the place because you dabbled in something. It wasn't quite what you thought it was. You got disinterested. You bounced to something else. We all went through that. I know I did years back. I was just wasn't fulfilled. I knew there was more. I would gravitate over this way, thinking that had the answers. I'd do that for a little bit. And I say, shit, all right, I got it. It's not really what I thought it was. I start to get disinterested with it. Bam. And then I went over here, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure we all went through that. Well, that's what that bastard element that you speak represents. That's us in some shape, form, or fashion. That represents us. We struggle with that. Now, even when you're on the path and you're going through the journey, you will find you will have relapses and moments going back to that. Maybe not on the same level as you did when you were struggling back then, but you will sometimes activate that energy sometimes. And that's what I meant earlier about staying sharp. Always be aware of the chaos energy, and how it works beneficially. And also if you're not paying attention to it and you're not mastering and controlling it, how it can consume you. It's all that is the message always. All right, what else we got? All right, what else we got here? I'm just looking for questions. Yeah, these are what I like to, so I do. Because I do a lot of speaking and use my voice a lot, I like to, these Halls, vitamin C drops. That's where you see me a lot in the videos, sucking on. Like to keep the voice hydrated with that, and I'll just drink plain water. And sometimes you'll see me drinking, like when I do the Saturday classes, the private classes, I have a herbal tea that I use. It's a throat coat that's got echinacea, ginseng, lemon, garlic, and ginger, which is great for the voice, great for the immune system, but it's very soothing. If you ever get congestion or I do get some allergies, so if you ever get that phlegm buildup in your throat, that combination breaks that shit right up. So I like these because they got zinc and vitamin C. So when you see me in the videos, and the antioxidant drop, and they taste good. Sugar level is pretty low too. You got to be careful with some of them because they can have high levels of sugar in them. But that's what you see me always sucking on in the videos. It could be Lego energy. It is for or issue, but they're very soothing to the throat. And if you speak a lot, like I do, your vocal cords are one of your tools that you need. It's like a singer. Singer sings. I'm sure they got to do things to keep their voice and vocal cords operating. All right, what else we got? Okay, good point here by L.A. Red. When I was talking about earlier in the King Arthur movie, where he thanked that monster which he was fearing. They show you how he tapped into it from a child. When he recognized that fear and that death and that chaos was always with him. And what he recognized when he makes that statement, and again, I paraphrase it, he says something along that lines. He realized that he spent more time running from it than embracing it. And he embraced it in the sense that he realized it brought out the best in him. It brought out the divine in him. So Ellie Red made a comment of a personal experience that he or she went through and got them over their fear of death. Well, same thing like in the King Arthur movie. He was fearing that of being consumed and destroyed and killed by it. It got him over the fear of death. So good point. That's true. Oni typed in earlier, fearing death is foolishness because we all got to face it. We just don't know when or how. And I said this before. That's one of the motivating factors why we're on this path. Be real with ourselves. A lot of us want to understand the mysteries of death. Part of working with the death current is understanding that realization, accepting it, embracing it. And step one is, along the words that Oni phrased it, it's a guarantee. You can't avoid it. If there's one thing that's certain in life that can be 100% guaranteed, that's it. I don't care how deep you are, what you think you know, try to play guru master / ancient Egyptian Kemetic guru. You really don't know. And what the fear is, we can read all of these ancient texts, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Maya Dresden Codex. We could read the Coming Forth by Day. We can read the Opening of the Mouth ceremony. They give us symbolisms, generalizations of a spiritual experience. But the fact is, part of people that misunderstand and fear death, you don't exactly know what the process is and what you're going to go through and how it happens. Don't fucking fool yourself. I don't care what you study, what you think you know. Now, if you had a personal death experience and came back to life, well, maybe you're just one of the special ones that was able to taste death and come back here. And that stuff can be a possibility. But that still doesn't incorporate the final transition into the afterlife. Now, there's a lot of information we can allude to that helps give us an understanding of embracing that and not fearing it. I'm not saying that, but you don't know exactly how that's going to happen. That's a reality. And I think that's one of the motivating factors why people get on a spiritual path, because we found out, per se, in religion, that's all they talked about was death, going to heaven, resurrection. And I know it instilled in me curiosity, like there's got to be more to it. That is a strong motivational aspect of why we're on this path. Keep it real. Right. And as LA Red said, based on their experience, it's not scary. It's pretty nice, actually. And those that have had those out-of-body experiences or near-death experience and to come back have that experience. Now, I can only attest to it of being out of the body, astral traveling, going to other spiritual realms, leaving. It's a feeling when you leave and vibrate at a person, place, or thing, and you go 4-dimensional and beyond. You really can't explain that in words. When you leave this realm, that is a form of dying. Maybe not in the sense of how we look at death on the surface. That is leaving this 3-dimensional existence that keeps you trapped here to gaining those higher understandings. That's why I did a video a while back that death is the doorway and the gateway to eternal life. And I wasn't just talking about the actual act of the physical death. I was talking about the process of being in that state. This is why everybody will have a different experience on it based on what they went through. It's a subject we could be here talking for hours, but yes. This is a powerful statement. L.A. Red also typed the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And that goes back to an old saying. You hear me say it all the time. A wise man knows he knows nothing. And that's why I said earlier, when you start thinking you know something, you get cocky, you get comfortable, you get complacent. You think you finally, once you start thinking you know something, then you don't stay sharp. You don't stay hungry. You start getting complacent. You get lazy. You start doing things that are convenient and comfortable. That's you can tie that comment into what I was saying in reference to that earlier. A wise man knows he knows nothing. Oh, this is a good comment by the Black Tower. When I was talking earlier, when we were talking about working with the Leviathan serpent / chaos energy, PEP, and like Black Tower, and as I said before, when I was earlier talking about that ritual, I do that intentionally. And that's good that anxieties, worries, and stupid worldly shit comes to the surface when I'm working with chaos like Leviathan. And it should, because that's how you address those things. So when you hear me say you got to address your bullshit and deal with it, because part of coming on this path, step one, is addressing the things about yourself that are fucked up. Not the things that you know you're good at, that you're skilled in. That's not what you need to focus on. You need to focus on the shit that's holding you back, that your hangups, your personal fucking things that are holding you back. So when worldly things and those anxieties come to the surface, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's true. L.A. Red types in, because everything answered, there's 1,000 questions for the answer. That's true. And that deals with perception, because there's so many different perspectives on knowledge and information. When you're doing that, you add the wisdom, right? Old 5% teaching that we used to get, you do the wisdom, right? How do you do the wisdom? You can't do the wisdom without the knowledge and the understanding. And via that knowledge and understanding, you should be creating those questions, because that's how we would say in the ciphers back in the day, a God adds on to the cipher, gives his build. That's what we mean when we say in the circle, how do you see it as God? And that's what I ask people, how do you see it as God? You understand? Where else we go? And a good point by the way, like I said, some of those answers can even contradict and confirm one another. And that's because of the different perspectives, how people look at it. It can create that concept. And it is, because why it can be contradicting to one person is how they're perceiving it and their perspective based on their experience and where they're at in their evolution spiritually and mentally, and vice versa. It can be a confirmation to another person based on where they're at in their journey, creating that, I would say, an illusion in the sense where it can appear to be a contradiction to one and confirmation to another. It's all about perception and how an individual perceives those energies and frequencies to self. So Phil says, I had a near-death experience when I overdosed at 17 in a party. I experienced absolutely nothingness, complete void, alone with my thoughts. Seemed like forever, although my friend said I was unconscious for a minute. And understand this, that same concept can be applied when you're locked in to an intense meditation, or you're astrally traveling, or you tapped into the spiritual realm. You break the time barrier. There's so many times in work like that where I felt like I was locked in or gone for what I was doing for a long time. Turns out it was only 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's how you know you have vibrated outside of three-dimensional person, place, and thing. That's how you know. You break the time barrier. Time is an illusion. It does not exist. That's one thing as human beings need to understand to master, quote unquote, those higher spiritual planes. You have to understand that if you're trying to astral travel, part of that process is making yourself less dense. By making yourself less dense, that's part of the process of breaking the time barrier, because all those things that make you dense is what keeps you confounded to this quote unquote three-dimensional material realm. You understand? Understanding the formula you need to utilize, and even though you're explaining it in an experience and some others have, once you break that time barrier, you've tapped into a whole nother level of existence. And that's why I always tell people, you can't really, this concept of God and the creator, you can't really understand it confounded to the realm of three-dimension, person, place, or thing. You'll never understand it. When you look at it when you're looking at it from a three-dimensional being, you're going to come up with a three-dimensional explanation of it. What does that mean? The surface explanation to that, when people give what their concept of God is in religious theology, it's either a person, place, or a thing. God is none of those things and all of those things simultaneously. You don't really understand that concept until you have an experience that some people are mentioning now in the chat, or some people that have disciplined themselves to travel those realms. You understand that none of that shit exists. You understand? God is none of those things and all of those things simultaneously. When you confound God in your limited understanding and explain it as being a person, a place, or a thing, when God exists outside of person, place, or thing. Think about that for a minute. So how can you explain something three-dimensional in a three-dimensional existence that's not three-dimensional in nature? And if we're talking about the primal elements, then we're not explaining the prime essence or origin of this God creation concept. Think about that for a minute. Marinate on that shit for a minute, and then you will see how idiotic people sometimes sound when they're giving their concept of God, and they'll say they're not religious, and it's not faith-based, but it's very faith-based in nature. Because how can God be there, but yet not be here? What I mean by that is, if a religious person thinks that God resides in a place called heaven, sitting on some throne, well, that's confirmation that he or she is not here. So how can you apply the concept of omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient? You can't be omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient when you're in a confined place and yet you're not here. That's why I say God is all those things and all those things are God. There's a science to that. That's somebody trying to speak and convey it, being in a three-dimensional existence, but trying to give you or lude you to the area of looking at it outside of a three-dimensional existence. That's why I say that. So hopefully that helps. Okay, LA Red. Cool. Popped in for a sec. We appreciate you popping in. Enjoy your food. Have fun with your pets or your animals. All right, what else we got? All right, we're getting there, people. We're getting there. Yes, and that is a term used in Ifa. Going into the deep, and that's not a coincidence in connection to this whole, the chaotic abyss. In Ifa, they do say that tapping into the deep aspect of your subconscious mind is going into your Olokun essence because of what Olokun represents, the deep abyss of the waters, the deep dark abyss of the waters or the ocean, which is really the deep dark abyss of your subconscious mind. All ties into this Leviathan energy, this whole Aquaman / King Arthur, Atlantean science. I mean, this shit is, I'm telling you, man, this shit is real. And they're telling you, smack in front of your face. They don't hide it no more. Nurse Coco, I like that name. Nurse Coco. Let me stop fucking around. I don't recall seeing you in here, but peace to Nurse Coco. What else we got? Days Rod, message retracted. I guess she pulled it back. I don't know why. All right, we'll skip that one. Yes, Oni, as a reminder, says stay vigilant and never get comfortable. True indeed. Damn, you guys typed a lot of shit in. I'm gonna try my best to get through it. All right, what else we got? The Black Tower says, I have recently had the blessings of finding, befriending, and being taught by an actual Sufi. That's pretty cool. Now I know there's different schools of Sufism, and hopefully I'm sure it is Black Tower if you're on this path. I'm sure it's that more mystical, occult, magical aspect of Sufism and not the Islamic aspect of Sufism. Because really, even though a lot of people connect Sufism with Islam, it's not really don't have anything to do with Islam. Matter of fact, real Sufis that are real occult, they use Islam to just hide behind. It kind of masks what they really do. And on my journey, Sufism is also Eastern mysticism, etc. Sufi magic, all that stuff has definitely influenced me in my journey, and I still utilize a lot of those practices to the point where one of my rituals I do every morning at my altar, where I have all my ancient Egyptian elements in Arabic, I recite the Surat al-Fatiha, but not from a religious Quranic aspect, because when you really understand the Surat al-Fatiha or the opener, I utilize it as opening my own personal roads, right? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin, right? This is the main part of the Islamic salat, right? How we were talking about earlier, how you can look at it from the surface religious, the exoteric or the esoteric. When you break down the Fatiha in English, it talks about staying on the straight and narrow path, right? How can an occultist say the Fatiha, but utilize it and apply it to self? Well, it's called the opener. So Fatiha means to open or opener, right? I say it as an invocation to open my paths and roads and keep them clear from obstructions and blockages. I say that's part of my morning ritual every day before I leave the house. I say the Salatul Fatiha from being in them schools, but now I utilize it in an occult aspect. I don't utilize it the same way. So we can take those things and transform them and make them for what we want to be. I don't say it as a Muslim. I'm not saying the Fatiha because I'm praying to some spook being called Allah. I'm activating the God energy that resides within me as an opener aspect. No different than if somebody used the Holy Death, or as they say in Spanish, Abri Camino, a road opener, to clear obstructions and obstacles. No different than you would use Ampu or Anubis. That's a road opening, path clearing archetype. But when I'm saying the Fatiha, I'm focusing on activating my real self, my personal demon. Damon can open those roads if I really start to connect with it. So that's how I, as a cultist, take the Salatul Fatiha and use it. Sufis utilize many different, they can actually use words of the Quran as magical invocations, using a whole different methodology. So even the Quran, when I still dabble in it from a magical perspective, I'll utilize a lot of those occult concepts, for lack of a better word. A good movie, if you go see, they show the Order of the Assassins, which is a black magical Sufi order. A couple years back, if you remember the movie, and I think it came out in, I love movies, so I like to correlate a lot of these movies to the information. I believe it came out in, I'm going to say, somewhere between 2005 and 2008. Prince of Persia, if you remember that movie. They show the Order of the Assassins there. That's that Sufi assassin order. They're in the all black. They're wearing the turban, the face is covered. They're wearing all black. They show them working with the snakes and working black magic. That's an actual Order of the Assassins. And I would also refer you to the book, The Assassins, The Militia of Heaven by James Wasserman. I did a whole video on that. And go look in the archives. I talk about that's the type of Sufism that I like to work with. James Wasserman, which I mentioned before in the past, he's actually the Grand Master of my OTO lodge here in Fort Lauderdale. He actually lives here in Florida now. He's originally from New York. He was actually the founder of Tahuti, the OTO Tahuti Lodge in Manhattan. And I said, you can actually go Google him. He's been on the History Channel, A&E, where they showed one of the workings he did called The Invocation of Tahuti. He actually allowed them to come in and film that occult ritual they did. But I would check his book out, The Militia of The Assassins, The Militia of Heaven, by James Wasserman. If one of your interests is Sufism, black magic, Eastern mysticism, beautiful thing. I love working with that shit. All right, what else we got? That's right. Never wait until the day of battle to sharpen your weapons. I think that speaks for itself. Yeah, I guess that was in reference to the Crowley comment earlier, because I know these comments came a little while back. The 4 layers, when you were talking about, I can only imagine when it refers to the sun consciousness and there's tradition as divine. Yes, and as I said, he was explaining 4 different, stages or layers. All right, someone says, oh my God, rather be one of the conscious community brothers said Bobby Hemming is wrong about Baphomet being the balance. Yeah, I've seen it. Matter of fact, and again, you know me, I'm not really into bashing and calling people out, but I saw a video. And again, anybody has a right to criticize anybody, but I think there's a way you can go about doing it. I saw a video that came out not too long ago by that brother. I really don't like him. I think he's a loudmouth and he just runs his fucking mouth, and I can't even listen to him talk. No offense. He sounds straight country, like just country ghetto hick. I just can't listen to that shit. That brother, Young Pharaoh, he did a real disrespectful video on Bobby Hemmett. Now, yes, he has a right. Anybody has a right to criticize and scrutinize any doctrine. We all have a right to do that. That's not what I had a problem. But it's the way he went about it. Very disrespectful. And he just talking shit. I know everybody likes to play tough guy and, fuck this and fuck that. Yeah, I use profanity when I get excited. Just a way of expression to express myself. But I wouldn't go in on certain people like that unless they outright attacked. Then I just have to dig into somebody's ass when provoked. But I saw the video in reference to what you're talking about, and he's saying because you got to remember he's coming from this comedic. To me, him and all those brothers, they're very religious by nature. So I saw him attacking that Bobby Hemmett was wrong about Baphomet, and he's not going to allow anybody to teach the black children. Can you imagine black children walking around with Baphomet tattoos? Because of your limited understanding of Baphomet. He was talking about how Bobby Hemmett was wrong about teaching that Baphomet, was a black god created by the original Templars, this and that. And to me, I don't really agree with that because that's not really, I don't agree with Bobby Hemmett's concept of Alois, who Crowley says he encountered in the Book of Law, because Bobby Hemmett said Alois was a black man that was on a spaceship coming back to the planet to save us. I don't agree with that shit. But I'll express it. But again, it's the way you express it. I don't know where he gets that from. But what he's saying about the Baphomet being the balance of power or harmony, that is true. And Baphomet's not a deity. So I disagree with all these people that approach Baphomet, because that's what this brother, Young Pharaoh, was saying on tape. The Baphomet is Lucifer and the devil and Satan. That's somebody that's indoctrinated by religious idiocy, not even ideology. And that's the problem. These brothers are coming from how they're perceiving it. And he's beefing, and from what I saw in the video, I didn't watch the whole thing, but from what I scanned through, he's saying in the video that if Bobby Hemmett's saying the origin of Baphomet comes from the Templars, where can you find it prior to that? Well, it doesn't just has its origin. It's an alchemical symbol that goes back to ancient Hermetic and Egyptian. Even when you take it out of the Greek Hermetic philosophy, it goes back to ancient Egyptian philosophy. It starts simply with the pentagram, which you can find. It was used as a seal to seal contracts and on artifacts. Where can you find it specifically mentioned? It's all encoded in anywhere from the 22nd dynasty and back. You can specifically find it used amongst the cult of Set. This is why you will find in a lot of black magic traditions, Set is correlated to this character called the adversary, Satan, or the devil. So I wish somebody would have explained to the young brother it predates the Templars, because the Templars only go back during the time of the Crusades, right? And the concept of Baphomet, the pentagram, and the symbol and what it represents, and it's a symbol, okay? Anybody that looks at it as a deity and they worship in it, that's something that's very modern and recent times. So somebody that makes a statement and thinks that everybody that's an occultist that uses the concept of Baphomet looks at it like that is completely ignorant. But to me, all that shit is bullshit. Like I say, there's a lot of things that Bobby Hemmett said that I agree with and that I don't. But I'm not going to just go out there and just go on some disrespectful rant. I can express it, and that's how I would express it. Like I said, him or any other brother or sister have the right to scrutinize and criticize and give their opinion on any information. That is your personal right. But that's not what I had a problem with. It's just the way you go about doing it. It's the way you conduct yourself. To me, that's where sometimes the problem comes in. Look, there's a lot of things I agree with and don't agree with, but I can respectfully agree to disagree. A lot of things that Dr. Phil Valentine teaches that I agree with, a lot of things he don't. There's a lot of things that Panic teaches that I've had Panic on the radio show several times. There's a lot of things that he teaches that I agree with, and there's a lot of things I don't. I mean, I'm not really up on all the personal experience thing with people co-signing on. Like, you know, you'll hear him talk about had an experience with Jimi Hendrix or Whitney Houston. I can't co-sign on that. That's subjective. That's personal. Anybody that, oh, yeah, and is 100% in agreement with it, that's religion. Because you can't co-sign on another person's personal experience when you didn't have the same experience. So that's where I might be in disagreement with certain shit like that. But I can express that respectively. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. But yeah, I saw all that shit. I don't. Okay. Yeah, only it is young Pharaoh. I just saw you quote. It is. I saw the video. It's funny you bring it up. I stumbled across it yesterday. It is. Again, I find it. Look, it's not to criticize people. I sit back and sometimes I watch shit because it's like a movie playing out. And it's funny because at that recent God Frequency conference they had that Panic was a part of, he had actually gave young Pharaoh a compliment. You know, and one thing Panic is very smart at doing, he doesn't engage in that controversial debate because he's a businessman too. He knows how to market his business. Because if you remember, how many people heard him over the years in his videos criticizing Hoteppers, but it seems like now he's working with a lot of the Hotepper community because there's a business aspect of it. He's smart enough to know not to get involved in that. See, a lot of these cats want to get on the internet and just, they got diarrhea in the mouth and they just want to, they love the controversy. They love the arguing, the fighting and the debate. And to me, that shit, what is with lately this dude, young Pharaoh, and all these people doing these videos on that fucking quack job, Nature Boy? Why are you giving this dude, like the dude is a fucking, he's got psychological problems. He's a nut. He's a Dr. York wannabe. Trust me when I tell you, it will end up in some FBI invasion, investigation, and incarceration. It's coming. It's right there over the hill. Trust me, it's coming. All the shit's coming out. This dude's passing STDs to women. He's letting his kids touch his penis after he has. This dude's a sick fucking bastard. Okay? Why are people giving? See, I look at the agenda behind that. So yeah, people say the flip side, well, you got to educate people this, but there's a point of education and then overdoing it. Okay? Why give that dude any type of fucking platform? Sarnetta had that dude on his show, but Sarnetta's a businessman too. He's about getting hits and getting that Google AdSense check. I know the game. See, when you ever look at somebody's channel, you'll look at somebody that has an honest channel with honest hits. I don't have the time to market when you see some of my videos getting a couple hundred hits, videos that might be out for a while getting, maybe in the low thousands, that's honest hits. These cats spend all day manipulating their hits because they do it for a living. And it's just like entertainment. Controversy sells. So they like to get on YouTube with all this controversial shit, talking smack, attacking people's doctrines. It's back and forth, yelling, screaming, and nonsense. At the end of the day, there is no personal growth in it. But somebody that sent me an email about Nature Boy, I told them, don't fucking send me that. I don't give a fuck about him. I don't care about that nonsense, that Dr. York space cadet shit. Because I know the brother was influenced personally by Dr. York. That's how he started out. And if you look at what he does, it's very Dr. York-like in nature. The motherfucker's all a master teacher. One picture, he's wearing Indian headdress. Yeah, niggas confused. That's just pure fucking psychological disharmony, man. But yeah, there's a lot of that shit going on. I don't fuck with that. Like I say, as long as you stay in your lane. And I know a lot of these cats, because when you Google or you search some of it, I see some of my videos come up right next to them. They're not going to confront any of this type of information because they know nothing about it. They think they do. They'll give their speculation, but they won't go in depth in a debate with the occult because that's not their arena. They can't fuck with this. And then they'll come over here and then it's the black and white issue. Then if it's a person like me teaching on certain subject, I don't fit the mold. My skin is just not the right complexion for them. I don't fit the mold. And that's the only shit that they can attack with. And once that's out of the way and we get down to the hardcore, I've been dealing with that shit for over 20 years. It don't faze me. Because I find Fools will use that as a distraction to take away from the core essence of the conversation. So once you get all your personal insecurities out of the way, and I simply say, been telling people this from day one, going back 20 plus years. If you don't like what I teach and I don't fit your mold, it's as easy as just going the other way. But don't think I'm going to back the fuck down, because let's get it 100% straight. I ain't no punk. Don't let the light skin fool you. Okay, let's make that shit clear. But anyway, I don't want to get into all that. That's just a distraction. All right, what else we got? Days Rods just said, my father, who is now deceased, rest in peace, told me he had a near-death experience and described seeing loved ones in one real but also meeting realms as he described as unknown. And again, here we get another perspective. Like I was just saying a few minutes ago, these near-death experiences or experiences of death, notice how there might be some similarities, but everybody's experience is not exactly the same, which makes it unique. So this confirms even further the point that we were discussing earlier. Nobody exactly know. There is no set format or process for this, is what I was trying to get at earlier. And part of one of the motivating factors of being on this path, that's what keeps us motivated to coming to the realization and understanding of that mystery. I think we all want to understand and master that mystery. So that kind of confirms what we were talking about even further. Okay, the Naga serpents, which, we mentioned a little bit earlier. We didn't really get into serpent people or serpent energy, the Naga serpents. When you get into the Naga, even when you go back to, I've mentioned before in previous videos, the Dogon of Mali, West Africa. They tapped into that Naga energy. I mentioned a few weeks back with Dr. David Blair, when he talked about the Naga serpents, when you look at some of the ziggurats, the step pyramids, and it's his video, Extraterrestrials and Something Life Form, one of his most popular lectures he did. He showed actually in his PowerPoint the ziggurats or the step pyramids where the symbols of the Naga or the serpent people are on the ziggurats, which because the Naga or the serpent people in ancient Egypt were known or connected to what we know as the Ogdoads, right? The Ogdoads were Nun, Nunet, He, Hek, Kek, Kikek. They were the reptilian or serpent creatures that emerged from the water. Now, they're known by many different names in different cultures. I also refer to the Dogon of Mali of West Africa. Now, I don't want to get too much into the whole reptilian serpent thing because people have different perspectives on that, but it is a part of the culture. It is a part of the energy. It is connected with the Kundalini serpent energy, Leviathan, and everything that we're talking about tonight. Because in essence, you're seeing the Naga serpent people portrayed even in Aquaman in the scenes of the people of Atlantis or the Atlanteans. So it's encoded in a lot of these different mythologies, theologies, and cultures, right? As I mentioned one time, a couple of times in the past, the Dogons, right? They believe, you could Google this. You could Google this while we're talking right now. Google the ostrich people of Dogon Mali. And you'll see pictures of people in Dogon, black people with feet that look like amphibian feet. They call them ostrich people because their feet, they have look at them. They look like the feet of amphibious creatures. And they say the reason why they have those feet, this is what's recorded in their history of the Dogon, that they mixed with these Naga or serpent people. In exchange for the Naga or the serpents mixing their seed with these people, they gave them knowledge, their secret knowledge. This is what's recorded in their history. They have something called the Baldo rite that they do or the Sagi, they do every 60 years to commemorate this. Now, I'm just telling you what's recorded in the history. Whether you want to accept it or not, that's up to you. Whether you think it's mythology or theology, that's up to you. But it is something that is recorded and exists. You can pull these pictures and images, up. It's not, nothing new. But there's always been that correlation, even when you look at the mitre of the Pope. Because when you deal with the deity Dogon now, who, when you get into the Sumerian culture, right? When you look at the mitre of the Pope and the cardinals, look at that hat closely. It's the tail of a fish if you look at it closely. The Catholic Church, the cardinals and the popes are telling you they're worshiping the Naga serpent people. All you got to do is look at their headdress. All that's connected to all the shit that we're talking about. Look at, it's called the Mitre. Google it, M-I-T-R-E. That's the name of the hat you see the Pope wear. And in their rituals, they're activating the serpent energy, the Dogon, right? That's their deity. Go do the research on Dogon. Dogon is also a deity that's hidden and encoded all throughout your Bible, right? You don't see it in the English, but when you go back and do your research, and again, I say you don't need to be a Hebrew scholar to see this. Just get you a blue online study Bible where they have each word broken down in the Hebrew and the English. Just do your basic due diligence. So that the Naga, the serpent people, all that stuff has always been, connected. You could activate and work that energy many different creative ways. You can do that. Now, even in Necronomicon, a lot of people like to use a lot of those deities of the underworld and the abyss to activate that energy and what they represent. Dogon being one of them, if that's the route you choose to go. Using Leviathan as an archetype is a very effective method because of what Leviathan represents. And I give you an example since we were talking about the Aquaman movie. So when you see Aquaman riding the sea dragon with the trident, it was confirmation that he mastered that serpent energy. So there's a lot of similar. There's many different ways you could work with it. All right. Only says Kabbalion from earlier. The Kabbalion and the Kabbalah are different. And as I said earlier, people mistake them too as being the same. The Kabbalion is just another term for the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, K-Y-B-A-L-I-O-N, where the Kabbalah is dealing with all the Hebrew mysticism. So make sure people understand it's two different things. All right, what else we got? All right, what else we got? Yeah, Brother Phil. All right. He says, can you elaborate on the meaning of the all-seeing eye on a pyramid? Now, I want to make this clear. Certain symbols take on different meanings in different schools of thought. So there's many different meanings. Some say it's the all-seeing eye of Horus. Some say it's the all-seeing eye of Ra, right? When you look on the dollar bill, let's start there. It means many different things to occultists. So let's talk briefly about some of those meanings. When you look on the dollar bill, you see the pyramid. And above the pyramid, you have the all-seeing eye. On the bottom, on the capstone, it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is New World Order. In Roman numerals, you have the number 1,776. When you look on the bottom of the capstone, you have the Roman numerals. That equates to 1,776. I'll tell you why I'm all saying this. The reason why that's on there, they say that's on there because that's the year that the Declaration of Independence was formulated, July 4th, 1776. That's not why it's really on there, though. That's also the year that Adam Weishaupt founded what we know as the Order of the Illuminati. And that's why you see more Egyptian symbolism, and it says, in God we trust, at the bottom, right? That's why more Egyptian and occult symbolism is on the very money that we exchange every day. So the all-seeing eye of Ra, some say it also represents the pineal, which is the true spiritual eye, because all of those senses, you really sense and see everything with the third eye. When you go into the Masonic Lodge, you'll see sometimes the all-seeing eye represents the worshipful master sitting in the east. And again, some refer to it as the all-seeing eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye of Ra. It just depends on what school of thought you're coming from. Now, when you get into... one of my tattoos is the all-seeing eye. See that? That's why I have that on there. When you get into higher, if you want to call it that, what one would term the higher levels of learning, quote unquote. Let's say, for an example, we use the Scottish Rite teachings, right? The all-seeing eye represents, you remove the equation of the separation of an external archetype, be it Horus, be it Ra, be it Samael. Some say it also represents Lucifer, right? Not how a spooked out religious person would say it, Lucifer being the devil, but Lucifer being the all light bearer, the all seeing representation of what we know as real light, intellect. But when you go up through the higher mysteries, let's say when you get into the Scottish rite, right? What people don't realize, they have a degree when you get past the Rose-Croix degree or Rose-Cruce degree, which really deals with some of the secret teachings of the Rosicrucians, right? You understand that all-seeing eye actually represents you on a multitude of levels. But we can go on and expound in many different theories. So when a question like that is answered, it's like when somebody says, what does a six-pointed star represent? Well, it depends if we're asking that question from a Judaism perspective, because as I mentioned before, the origin of the six-pointed star can be found on the temples in Babylon before it was ever used in any Jewish culture. And that's where the Jews got it when they compiled the Torah and they came back into Jerusalem during the time of Ezra and started to compile the Bible and put it together. The six-pointed star is a Babylonian star. It has nothing to do with Judaism. Well, it's the same thing. We can take on a whole different meaning in different schools of thought when we talk about the all-seeing eye on the pyramid. But many will say it represents the all-seeing eye of the creator. Now, the question that comes into play is, how does one perceive the creator? We look at that all-seeing eye as us. We are the all-seeing eye God. We are God. You understand? A Luciferian would also look at it in that perspective. Somebody that might be more exoteric would look at it as that's the eye of the aforementioned deities. That would be somebody coming from, in my opinion, or vibrating on a lower frequency or a lower level. So it just depends on what school of thought you're coming from. Okay, I'm not sure I'm clear on this question. Maybe you can type something in down at the bottom to clarify. So, Brother B, do you have any thoughts on dreaming about someone saying to you, I need to dye this burgundy? Basically dreaming about dyeing something, like dyeing it, that color, an object. I mean, I would need more information on it. Could mean many different things, in relation to maybe something that's going on in your life or their life, and you might be tapping into that communication. But maybe you could type something more on it. Yeah, I mean, you could refer to changing, because if you're dyeing something, you're changing the appearance. And again, I always tell people, trust your intuition, trust your personal messages. You ruin the personal message when you second and third guess it. If that was your initial intuitional feeling, I'm telling you, that's what it is. I always tell people that. Phil, my dreams have always been weird. Yeah, join the club, brother Phil. But I know you got a intense, crazy kind of wacky energy, and that's a good thing. If we were normal, we'd be fucking boring. Who wants to be around normal ass boring people? I know I don't. That shit is boring as fuck. What else we got? All right. Peace to Brother Jack. I know he was in here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here. I was talking with him earlier today. All right, what else we got? Damn, I'm glad y'all typed in a lot of shit. I'm good. I'm happy to see this dialogue. I'm trying, people. I'm going to see if I can get through it all, man. I still think there's quite a bit more. Let me see what we got here. Hold on. I'm going to try my best, people. Time may permit me not to, but I will try my best. I'm glad you guys really went off the chain tonight with your commentary, and I'm glad to see this. See, and this is the difference of not using a book. That's what I'm saying. When we just flowing with it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through all this shit. Wow. All right, let me see if I can speed it up a little bit. I'm sorry, but. All right, what else we got? Okay, I'm going to skip some of this. All right, I'm skipping some of the personal. I'm trying to speed it up a little bit, people. I didn't realize you guys went off the chain with this shit tonight. All right, here's a good comment by Key Goddess. So basically, Leviathan is primordial energy we can tap into for the chaos energy. Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it. Because as I said earlier in the beginning of the video, it's very important we really understand the etymology of words, especially in the English language, because English is a very confusing language, because it's the only language where PH and F are the same sound. It's the only language you could spell phone PHONE and not FONE. It's the only language where you can spell pneumonia and start it out with PNE and not A. And then there's a chemical ammonia that you can, well, pneumonia, that you don't. You could put a P that's silent in front of the N. It's just, it could be very confusing. But primordial, we know when you look up the word, is they'll use another word with prime. Yes, it's that prime original source of energy that one can tap into, or some call it chaos. The reason why we say chaos energy, because it has no order, it has no structure. Anything that is not confined or limited is prime in nature, because it wasn't organized or structured to the point where it was dumbed down, diluted, or watered down or polluted. So we connect the word primordial chaos energy in the sense when we're talking about Leviathan, because it has no structure. The only thing that can make structure out of the individual that's working with it. Remember the one quote that I read there where it said it can either be utilized as a tool to destroy or utilized as a companion of God, right? You have to look, how do I apply that to myself? Well, I can utilize it as a companion and use the power of that energy to benefit myself to get results. But if I don't know how to work with it, I can be consumed by it. And that's where it can become something that can become an obstruction in your path to your life. So yes, if you wanted just a basic quick summarization, yes, Leviathan is primordial energy that we can tap into for the chaos energy, most definitely. And the chaos energy is the most powerful. And that's why that alchemical term speaks on many different layers and volumes. Out of order, out of chaos comes order. You have to take that statement and apply that to you. That's not going to mean the same thing to everybody. It's a perspective one can use to gauge how they're working with the chaos energy. Because I say that because the type of order an individual needs is going to vary from person to person. And I'm not talking about religious restricted order, how you make sense or order of things, how you best see fit to be able to apply it to yourself in your everyday life so you can get results and evolve and change and grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. If we want to take it now and modernize it, how we can utilize it in this day and time. Because my thing is, what good is all these ancient concepts if we can't update it and use it for 2019 and beyond? Because if we can't take that ancient information that they were using back then and update it for now, then we're just as guilty as other people just reading books and spewing information, right? We have to take that knowledge from then and update it where we can apply it now, because we got to stop living in cultures that already had their time. Ancient Egypt is done. Don't mean you can't utilize the knowledge from the culture, but make sure we update it. See, I'm not trying to walk around and wear dashikis and look like I'm an ancient Egyptian like a lot of these people want to do, because to me, that speaks volumes to me. You're still stuck in that mindset. That culture had its time, but the knowledge that it emanated will never die. But your job and your goal is to take that knowledge and bring it into today. That's where it becomes difficult. All right. All right, I'm skipping some of this. Mara, thanks. That was the name of the character in the movie. Aquaman's companion. Thank you for that. I was looking for the name earlier. I couldn't recall. Appreciate that, Christoph. Appreciate that. The Black Tower says that combination reminds me how Lilith, as Jay awoken, Ahriman aroused the lust within him, and like all masculine forces, they are stirred, awakened, or given to the act by feminine force, hence balance. And you saw that with Aquaman and Mera, because obviously it's going to develop into a sexual attraction, but you saw the sexual energy, the spiritual energy, the emotional energy. You saw all elements of that. And remember, I said that's the trident. That's what that represents. Mastering the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. All of those things are connected, but you saw that, and that's another good analogy. All right. Are Luciferian rituals more power with the menstruating woman, aka the Scarlet? Yes, because remember, blood is one of the most powerful elements that one can use when working that type of magic, because any type of fluids can activate certain energies. So most definitely. And when it says yes, you will have serious problems understanding this path if you're not familiar with esoteric knowledge, anthropomorphic imagery, and mythology. Period. Most definitely. Taylor gang. Yeah, if you came in late, there might be some spoilers. Unfortunately, I try not to. If you didn't see King Arthur or Aquaman, no, there wasn't. We didn't spoil completely everything, but I'm not gonna lie. We probably were a few spoiler alerts, quote unquote. But I don't think it'll deter you from watching the movie. But yes, if you go back and watch the stream, we'll warn you. There are some spoiler alerts, a few. All right. Yeah, Gemini's are a handful. I'm a Gemini. We got dual personalities. Yeah, wifey, she don't play. Aries the ball. I don't fuck around with that. Only says I dated a Gemini for 8 years. Oh my God, I wanted to choke him out. Scorpios, I want to choke out. Scorpios frustrate the fuck out of me. I'm sorry. That's a whole nother energy. I'll get into that another time. Brother Mumso, late. Yeah, you real late, brother, but good to see you here. All right. We're almost there, people. We're almost there. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. Yeah, I know it's getting late. Some people got to leave. We're going to wrap this up soon. Okay, Mumso, you've been having them Leviathan dreams. That's good. Yeah, Phil, I know you know from being out in that area when earlier I was talking about the music and the gangster rap and all that shit. LA riots. Well, I remember when the whole Rodney King went down. Shit, they rioted in New York. I remember I had my table set up on Delancey and Essex Street on the Lower East Side, and right when the Rodney King verdict came out, they started rioting that whole area. I remember packing my shit up while shit was breaking out in New York when they were protesting the verdict in New York. They were rioting in a lot of cities, and I remember folding my table up and getting the fuck out of there because it got crazy over there too. And I mean, obviously LA was worse, but I remember that clear as day. When that verdict came through, I was out on the streets, Lower East Side, Delancey and Essex Street, right on the corner, right by the J&M and the Z train. I used to set up right upstairs, right next to that, stairwell where you go into the subway. I got the fuck out of there because it got crazy over there. They started rioting there. But yeah. All right. People, I'm skipping through some of the comments because I'm not going to have time to get through everything. I'm just seeing if anything stands out to me importance. I'm sorry. It's just I didn't realize I've been on for over 3 hours. Didn't know it was going to go this long. But I knew this topic was going to spark a lot of good questions and information, and you guys really went in tonight. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to everything. I'm just going to see. Magical Mercer. Where did the Coco nurse go? She left? Stop. Magical Mercer. I love your content. It cleared up a lot of things for me. Well, I'm glad. That's the objective. If it can give you some motivation and clarity to get you on your path and do things for yourself, then my job is accomplished. Straight Panther 79 piece. Yep, you got on here late, brother. You can always watch the replay. All right, what else? All right, Gypsy's going to shower and light her candles. Cool. Oh, all the daughter's cracking. Bougie with herbal tea. Picking. Nah, let me stop. That's funny. Cool. Yeah, I'm actually soon, once the weather warms up, only I'm headed back that way. So I'll definitely hit you up. Yeah, Magical Mercer. Used to think I knew who I am, but yeah, it's a never ending journey. And if you constantly stay hungry and motivated to learn, you'll keep growing. And you're right. And that's why a lot of people tell you earlier, some of the comments, wise man knows he knows nothing. All those things are a reality. You start to realize that as you get older. I mean, you could always connect Leviathan to any shift or change because chaos always brings change. Yes. Is it more a matter of personal perspective? Most definitely. But yes, you could correlate Shakti and you could correlate Leviathan because anytime you're working with any of those energies, there's always going to be a shift, either emotionally, spiritually, mentally, transpiring or taking place. So most definitely. Yeah, the movie earlier, that was the movie, Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, that shows that black magical aspect of Sufism. Good movie. And they actually show a couple different scenes with the Assassin Order, which it's not just one quick scene. They are a strong element, a part of the whole story, which I thought was pretty cool when I saw the movie a few years back. Key goddess, yes. Does Leviathan have the intense energy like Saturn? Yes, most definitely, because when you're talking about primordial chaos, you can't get any more intense than that. You're talking chaos in its purest form. And it can become extremely intense to the individual that doesn't know how to work with it. And that's why I like in the story, we must become like Set and be able to master a pep, aka chaos, and not become like Ra and disillusioned and think we can destroy chaos. See, first concept of working with chaos is understanding its energy. You can't destroy it. And that's why I said earlier, it will keep resurrecting and manifesting. And that's recorded in the coming forth by day. I am like a pep. Each day I shed my skin and grow and regenerate and grow a new skin. This is all symbolicism. Set knew that. Set never set out to eliminate chaos. He set out to control it, to make order of it, to utilize it to his benefit. Whereas your Hotepers and your religious people, their goal is they're under this illusion, thinking they can destroy, quote unquote, what they term evil or chaos or negativity. You can't destroy energy. That's why those schools of thought and philosophies and spiritual systems don't work. And people have convinced themselves that they're woke / conscious, and they're really not. It's another form of religion, just sprinkled with African and Egyptian concepts. That's the difference. It can be very intense, even more so, quote unquote. And Saturn energy is very intense, but yes, because you're dealing with the pure essence of chaotic energy, right? Yes, Straight Panther says he's heard. You've heard of the ostrich. Yeah, Google the ostrich people. When we were talking about the Naga and the serpent people and the Dogon, you can Google that shit. I'm not telling you nothing you can't research. And when it comes to topics like that, again, I leave that up. I'm not saying it doesn't exist or it does, as far as it being a reality. I'm saying there is information and evidence circulating that it is a possibility that there is some truth to it. But having said that, I always tell the individual, you do the research for yourself and you come to the conclusion if it's a reality or if it's truth to you. I don't like to pass certain information on as an undeniable truth because then we start getting back into a religious mind frame. I can only tell you my perspective on that whole concept is I see that there's evidence there to support some of them theories. I don't know if all of it's accurate. I can only tell you on the work that I have done. So I leave that up to the individual. But it's interesting. If you're interested, research that, the Dogon of Maui, the Sagi. And they also tie into that with the Orion constellation and Sirius Star and all that. with the Sagi. There's a connection with all that because they say that these Dogons were connected to the Sirius star constellation. It's recorded in their history, in their text. All you got to do is pull it up. You draw the conclusions, though. I ain't going to pass it on as if I accept it as 100% truth because there is some gray areas in there you would have to really analyze. All right. Key Goddess says, I also, yes, I would, she also said, I also have dreams about serpents, dragon, and multiple reptilians. Does that mean I should work with this energy? I would say yes, because if you're getting to me, that's a communication. And I keep telling people, trust your communications and your messages. If you're seeing these things in a dream state, remember when you're dreaming, most of the time when we're dreaming, not saying all the time, but I would say most of the time people have these experiences, they're laying flat on their back when all the chakras are lined up, and your body starts to align with the megahertz of the planet or the frequencies of the planet, you go into that alpha or dream state where you start to, quote unquote, you literally are traveling, right? And the messages become clear. So I'm saying that when you're getting a lot of that in your dreams, I would definitely take that as a message to start formulating ways you can work with that energy to get results for however you're using it. You could be using it for financial means. You can use it to repair relationships, be it with significant others, family members. You can use it as a sexual energy because it's very sexual in nature too. So yes, to me, that's a communication from the personal daemon or the higher self, pushing you in a direction or showing you an area where there's opportunity for growth and evolution. That's how I would look at it. And never go against your intuition. And I always say when people ask the question, does it mean I should work with, you already sense that you should. You know that. You're asking that, but you already know that. I don't know if you're a Gemini, but sometimes I know Geminis have a tendency to ask questions they already have the answers to, or they like to ask shit where they just want somebody to say the same thing that they already know, because we do that. Sometimes we need confirmation. So I'm not sure if you're a Gemini, but we tend to do that. But anyway, what else we got? Capricorn says, what kind of offerings can you give Leviathan? Now, I per se don't really work with Leviathan as far as giving physical offerings. The only thing I really do in the physical, I like to work with black candles. I like to light black candles when I'm working with that energy. There's symbolisms and things you can use. Like I say, I have prop snakes, black ones. I like to add those elements. Now, as far as if you want to create a system where you want to give food offerings or elements that are connected to the sea, I do know some people that have done that. Some people have created an altar for Leviathan with seashells, sand, seaweed. So if you want to get if you feel you can use some physical elements to make a connection, that's entirely on you. I per se don't use physical offerings like that. I do use physical objects such as black candles, prop snakes, and imagery that's connected to Leviathan. That's kind of how I work with it. But by all means, if you feel like you want to add physical offerings, that's what I would do. Capricorn, okay, Key Goddess, okay. Yeah, they tend to sometimes have that nature too, but yeah, I would definitely work with that energy if you're getting those messages. All right. I think we made it to the end, people. All right. Okay, so that's it. Finally got to the end. I kind of skipped a little bit. Most of it was comments. All right, so people, just a reminder real quick before everybody leaves. That's going to wrap it up for this evening. I think I went long enough. Remember, I was on tonight, Wednesday, because of the holiday. I think I should be on Tuesday. I know that's New Year's Day. Not sure. It just depends on how the day goes and when I get done. If it's not Tuesday, I might be back on next Wednesday, and then after that, go back to Tuesday nights. I like to keep the regular Tuesday night video because it's convenient for me with my schedule. It works out great. But I think I'm going to probably come on Tuesday night, which is New Year's Day at nighttime. More than likely, I don't think I'm going to do it on Wednesday. If something changes, I'll send out a notification. And again, reminder, our next event down here in South Florida will be on Friday, January 25th, 8 o'clock. And I think since we're talking about all this Leviathan and all this shit, I think we might do something in regards to this. It seems like this is the energy that's dominant right now. So we're pondering a few things, but we'll have that clarified in a few days. All right, so that'll be Friday, January 25th, 8 o'clock. More than likely either be on next Tuesday or Wednesday. Then after that, for sure, we go back regular on Tuesday evenings. Look for me posting some videos here and there in between, some quick non-live videos. Look for that. Make sure when you're subscribed to the channel, you got your notification button on. I know some people don't get notifications because they don't have that button on. So if you need information for that, online classes, spiritual consultations or readings, or any of the things that we talked about tonight, email me at khnum19@gmail.com. All my emails and all the description boxes of every video, if you forget it, khnum19@gmail.com. All right. I appreciate this, people. It's been I got a lot out of this subject from listening to some of you guys' comments and questions. So I learned a lot tonight from some of the stuff that you guys put in. Appreciate the great participation, feedback, and support. And talk to you guys soon. Peace.